There we go. All right. Still struggling with the new software that I'm using, so back on the old stuff. We're streaming today. We're streaming today. I hope you're doing well. We're streaming today. We're streaming today. It's hotter. It's hotter than hell. Hope you guys are doing well today. It is a hot, blazing day. Yet another record-breaking day for heat. Oop, oop, oop. That's not thunder, is it? No, I think there's just people stomping. Hey, Macht, how you doing today, bud? Good to see you. Just dealing with some strange noises, eh, bud? Strange noises. Spooking my dog, some strange noises in here. Oh, I know, buddy. Go get it. All right. Hope you're doing well, Macht. We're just getting started here. And already, law enforcement took more stuff from people than burglars did last year. Asset forfeitures surpassed burglaries. I got a whole bunch of links here opened up that I've found today. I'm going to start with those and then move on. And whoop, what's going on here? No. We're back. And then my house looks like an oven? Oh. That would explain it. Yeah, I don't have any air conditioning. I'm trying to resolve that. Actually get an air conditioner in here. Cool the place off. I've got a little pug. Yeah, exactly. This means they're seizing wealth from the capitalists, right? And and employers steal more in unpaid wages than police and burglars combined, right? Our whole society is just geared towards stealing as much money from the populace as we possibly can. New Ipsos Reid poll coming out. Liberals are at 38%. Support plateaus on back of vaccination program and reopening plans, while conservatives slip behind. I hope those conservatives just keep on slipping behind. Let's make sure those conservatives don't gain any ground whatsoever, because if they fall back, the farther and farther that the liberals fall back, that gives the NDP more opportunity to grow. Because the only thing that's keeping the conservatives in the game and keeping the liberals in this majority territory that they're currently in is this narrative of, oh, well, I've got to vote liberal or else the conservatives will get in. And the more that softens, the more we can actually start to say, hey, wouldn't you like to vote for anything other than this? Don't you think that this anything we're doing right now, or don't you think that this nothing we're doing right now about literally all of these massive problems that exist in our society, many of which are beginning to look irresolvable? Like, I just had a podcast with J.B. Burrows, which you can find soon on thesocialistagenda.com, he was saying that David Attenborough was asked the question, do you think we can turn around from this climate change disaster? And David Attenborough was just like, no. Like, David Attenborough thinks we're screwed. And here's a guy who spent his whole life looking at nature and looking at environmental issues. And that's pretty harrowing. Like, that's pretty tough to hear. That like, somebody who's as well entrenched in this is not coming with a message of hope. He's straight up saying, like, yeah, we're screwed. We had our chance. Too bad. So, on that happy note, let's continue on with the stream. I mean, you guys know me. My general opinion is we need to have complete revolt. We need to revolt completely against this system because it's obviously failed. Like, it's obviously failed. And it's going to get more and more obvious. The Conservatives used to be a somewhat decent party when they used to be the Red Tories. I completely agree with that, Ocean. That when because they used to believe that government was actually capable of doing things. Like, in my home province of Manitoba, it was the Conservatives that put in, hey Ruth, how you doing today? It was the Conservatives that put in education funding. They tripled the size of the government budget, right? Like, really think about, like, a Conservative tripled the size of a budget. But the Red Tories' position was always, like, we're fine with government spending. We understand that the government can do things. We just want the government to spend money on things that are going to be valuable, right? Like, that was always kind of the Red Tory position. And that's gone, right? Like, because of the corporate coup, because the corporations have taken everything over, now the Conservative position isn't, we want the government to effectively spend money. Now the position is, we don't want the government to exist. Which, when you actually pause and think about it, is extremely dangerous. Like, oh, we don't want the institution where people actually vote to be responsive to the people any longer, or be worthwhile to the people any longer, and instead we're going to cede all of this power to corporate capitalists who certainly don't respond at all to the needs of the populace, outside of packaging something to sell to them, right? And if they can withhold, like, necessities like food and water, they will. Many conservative parties used to be like that the wealthy had an obligation to help the poor, yep, until neoliberal grifters took over the right. It all changed when money became more important. Well, we're in a society of money worship, right? That, like, we're literally elevating money above our own ecosystem. That money is more important than literally our breathable air or drinkable water, right? It like goes back to that First Nations quote I feel like we've all seen, right? Is it won't be until the last river dries up that white people realize you can't eat money, right? So Robin is saying, I listened to a debate between a communist and a libertarian recently. The libertarian literally wanted corporate pseudo-states, run by warlords with no central government. That is what the libertarian movement is. They literally want... What they're arguing for is neo-feudalism. Like, there's just no other way to say it. That, like, we are heading towards a period of neo-feudalism, and there are people throughout the United States, the libertarians, who that's what they want. And considering that, like, there's tons and tons of people throughout the United States who have been abandoned by the system currently, and the system as it exists now is extracting enormous amounts of wealth from them through taxes, it's not surprising to me that people are saying, like, well, we should have a different system then, right? And there are lots of people who are like, oh, like, we'll just not pay any taxes, let private interests run these places. That'll be better than this system we've got right now, right? And I mean, there is a certain degree of truth to that. Like, if you're living in America today and you're paying taxes, like, a good portion of your tax money is going to destroy the rest of the planet. So any system would be better than that. My position when talking to libertarians is, why would you want to use a system that's so experimental and radical, has never actually been tried, while there are functioning models that work, right? Like, that's the thing that baffles me the most. Like, healthcare is a great example of this. That libertarians are like, libertarians are like, let's privatize the healthcare industry and all this kind of stuff. And my response to these guys has steadily been like, okay, well, what's with the experimental attitude? Like, you're in the middle of a crisis, right? And there are plenty of working models that completely function. Why don't you want to use the functioning existing models that we know work? Like, even if your system, even the system that you envision works, it's still extremely experimental. Like, no one runs their system that way. Not one single person. Libertarians will just tell you communism has never been tried, and then you'll have to explain for an hour that it has. Yeah, I'm kind of over-explaining. Like, not over-explaining, but like I'm done explaining to these guys. Like, communism has never been tried. What are you talking about? The Soviet Union, Russia, China today, right? Like, and to claim that these guys have not been successful, I just think it's an embarrassment. I literally think I just want communists and socialists to stop being on the back foot about this. Like, when we talk about this, we really need to talk to these people like they're idiots, like childish idiots, and just be like, what are you even talking about? Like that's an embarrassing thing to say. The Soviets were the first people into space, for God's sakes. Like, China has created an economic miracle inside of its borders. Like, what are you talking about? Like, that just tells me that you're illiterate. Like, that's literally what I say to these guys, because they are. They're just, it's a stupid thing to say on the face of it, and really shows, I mean, you have to be illiterate to be a libertarian, right? And you have to be. Like, if you actually read anything, you would definitely never be a libertarian. So it's just shocking to me. The thing that's scary about the liberals being about 38%, this is majority territory. Okay, Milo, you're being very squirmy right now. My dog is like right here, and he's just like, pay attention to me. Now that you're streaming, the second I hit the stream button, that's when I need everybody to pay attention to me. I'm Milo. Pay attention to me. Oh. Big shocker. Okay, buddy, go get it. Yeah. He's hilarious because he's actually getting blind. Like, he's actually getting a little bit blind. Yes, I know, buddy. I know. So I throw the ball, and he's like staring at me, and then the ball will like drop near him, and he'll be like, what? There's a good boy, buddy. There's a good boy. Okay. Here. How about I hit you with some peanut butter? Quick. Here you go, bud. That's a good boy, buddy. That's a good boy. Good boy. Hey, DM, how you doing today, bud? A clean-shaven Justin Trudeau just announced an affordable housing program to quell the homeless. Yeah, it must be election season. As if we believe them. Like, as if we believe these guys. Like, this is my thing when it comes to dealing with these liberals. Like, and people who are thinking about voting liberal, I'm just like, what, you believe these guys? Like, what? Why? Why do you believe these guys? What have they done to convince you that they are to be believed? Like, I don't mind a liberal minority government, because the liberal minority government has shown that they're willing to be responsive to pressure from other parties, and they're willing to actually work with other parties, and they're willing to actually get, some stuff done. But a liberal majority party, I super hope you like big bailouts and big handouts to corporations, as well as wholesale abandonment of large sections of the populace. Like, this idea that Justin Trudeau is actually going to move forward on an affordable housing program, yeah, okay. I don't believe that for a minute. I'm pretty sure libertarians read stuff like The Fourth Turning. Yeah, Robin. Yeah, I'm getting done with that guy. If he shows up again, I'm gonna put the gears on him a little bit today. Who votes liberal anyway? 38% of the populace. 38% of the populace, like 1 in 3, right? 1 in 4 people, or what is that? 38% is way more than 1 in 4. Yeah, 1 in 3. It's and I do think that lots and lots of people are voting liberal. Lots of people vote liberal because they do have this kind of like, got to do that or else the conservative might get in, right? Can't have that. And of course my position with that is like, they're allies, so I don't really see what's the difference really. Like, the conservative base is certainly like a bunch of hysterical nightmare people, but like the conservatives generally, like when the conservatives and the liberals get into power, they run the country the same way. There's no real distinction. There's no real difference. So I don't really understand, like, although you could argue that like conservatives are way more austerian these days. So, and also I do think that lots of immigrants vote liberal, and that journey is pretty honest, if you ask me. Like, if you're coming in and you're coming in from Syria, right, or Venezuela or someplace, you're usually coming in because of a liberal immigration program. The liberals are the government that's in power. You don't really know like what's going on politically. You don't really know that much about the other parties, and it's very common for immigrants moving to a new country to just sort of vote for the status quo, because the status quo is what got them here, right? And they're really happy about that. They're like, sweet, made it. I'm going to keep voting for the people who are responsible for getting me here. And they don't have a critique or a larger analysis of the political system, which I mean is completely honest. So it's like, oh, okay. So that to me is the people, and honestly, you get a whole ton of capitalists who are like, we've got to do something about the homeless and the poor. You know, oh, they're so, I read about them, you know. I was walking by Trinity Bellwoods and I saw one of the tents. Oh, so sad, you know. Let's go get some brunch and talk about how sad it is. Like, liberal voters. Yeah. And then, you know, Justin Trudeau will just, like, flip his hair, be like, we here at Justin Trudeau Incorporated believe that telling you that we are going to do something is as good as actually doing something. Justin Trudeau. Oh, yeah. I'm actually really looking forward to this election. I think this election is going to be really, really interesting. And these polling numbers are really, really soft. Like, this 38% is a soft 38%. So there's a lot of wiggle room here. And I think the NDP are actually well positioned to take up a lot of space in this election. So we'll see how it goes. Oh, I completely have forgotten to mention, we're going to see it at some point, Donald Rumsfeld is dead. If you guys don't know, one of the architects of the Iraq War, a complete disaster, an obvious neoliberal and a fascist, Donald Rumsfeld, died at 88. The world's a little brighter. And my observation is, isn't it interesting how we got this enormous heat wave at the same time as Donald Rumsfeld died? Coincidence? Here's actually a really, really big story. So, former coup regime official Carlos Schlink was detained today at Viru Viru Airport in Santa Cruz while trying to leave the country. Courts had banned him from leaving Bolivia, as he's been called to testify as a witness as part of the investigations into an illegal IMF loan taken out by the Inez regime. So when Bolivia was couped, right, we all remember when Bolivia was put under a coup. Oh, and what's going to happen? Google Maps. Google Maps. It's time to open Google Maps. We all remember that tweet that Elon Musk sent out saying we're going to coup whoever we like. Well, that was in reference to Bolivia, and Bolivia underwent a coup with the help of the United States State Department, as well as Elon Musk and his funding as well. Didn't work. And during that time, that the people who committed the coup, well, they attempted to take out a massive IMF loan to plunge the country into a permanent debt austerity, right? Like, that was the goal. And now the Bolivian people are attempting to, put these guys in jail for it, which is great. Like, these IMF loans are oppressive. They're purposefully oppressive. They're purposefully done to create a nation of indentured servants. That's the whole goal. And this became more absurd because the government couldn't actually spend the money because of the vote in Congress. So the lump sum just had to sit in the accounts of the central bank. But while it did, the value of the SDR was going up and interest was being charged. Like, it's such a dumb story. And like, the IMF, like, what are you kidding me? The International Monetary Fund is going to look at the coup in Bolivia and be like, oh yeah, that's normal. We should definitely expect this nation to pay this loan back. Like, that's insane. Like, that's insane. That tells you that institution has no credibility whatsoever. if they're going to be like, oh yeah, Bolivia underwent a coup, and then suddenly took out a huge loan from us, and now that the people who actually elected the government got the government they want, they're saying, oh, we didn't want this loan. Well, too bad. Ha ha ha. Like, what are you talking about? That's dumb. That's super dumb. Yeah, the classic employer frustrated at Canadians who just don't want to work. Like, this grifting narrative that's coming out, and we all knew it was coming. Well, people have been getting too many benefits, and so they're just sitting around and they're not doing anything. Like, meanwhile, like, the ecosystem is collapsing. We're finding out that the wealthy are essentially pedophiles and rapists. Who wants? Yeah, of course we don't want to work. Who would want to work for this system? This system is literally designed to destroy us and our children. Why would we want to work for this? Why would we want to spend any amount of time paying any attention whatsoever to this? To me, it's become like an insipid insanity. Like we absolutely should not tolerate any longer. Like, and it's the counter to what I've been saying this whole time, which is we need to revolt. We literally need to stop doing stuff. We need to slow right down. Like, I've got fans going in my apartment, and I'm like, this is too much energy. I'm burning too much energy. But I don't want to die of heat, like has been happening on the West Coast. I believe there's like 68 people now have died from this heat wave. Unbelievable. Breaking, more COVID-19 restrictions are lifting in BC Thursday as the province moves to step 3 of its restart plan. The Premier was also asked about preps and messaging for the unprecedented heat wave. Fatalities are a part of life, responded Premier Hogan. The public was acutely aware that we had a heat problem. 100 plus have died to heat in Metro alone. And like, the heat waves that are going throughout the West Coast are going to get worse. Like, they're going to get worse. I'm interested to know your opinion on lockdowns and mask mandates. I know many people on the left value personal freedom, but what is your opinion? My opinion is always listen to the experts. Whatever the experts are saying, that's what we should be doing. There are people in your society who have dedicated their lives, their whole life, to this one thing. And when everybody turns and looks at the thing that they have spent their whole life analyzing and constructing and looking at, and they say, we should do this, then we should do that. Like we should. It's the smartest, wisest thing to do. Oh, the people who are actually like living in this experience are telling us, lockdowns, masks, wash your hands, right? Vaccines. Listen to them. I don't see why this is like, and for some reason this has become like the controversial take. Listening to experts, listening to people who actually have a better idea as what's going on than we do. Like, and so I guess this is like a long form way of me saying, like, I don't really have an opinion on these things because my opinion is their opinion. Like, and their opinion is the most informed opinion, which I just think that why aren't we living our whole life this way? Seems very confusing. I love the clown face with the what a cycle thing. Oh, you want to? Okay, buddy. You want to come up? You guys would not believe what I'm looking at right now. Like, I'm looking at a little pug down here that's just like, let me love you. Let me love you. And he just wants to like lick my leg, basically. So, you know, speaking of experts, I have a love expert right here, right? There's nobody more lovely, than a little lovely pug. I know, buddy. I love you too. I love this like clown face. What a psycho. Ongoing, antihate.ca is doing like really a big, I just did a video about the rising tide of Nazism, in the society here, and antihate.com is still going on. This guy right here, like, in his speech that day, Russell laid out his vision for a right-wing nationalist Canada First movement, citing Canadian white nationalist Faith Goldie, Nick Fuentes, the young leader of the Groypers, a movement and further rebranding of the neo-Nazi alt-right as sources of inspiration. Like, these people are dangerous. Like, these people are dangerous. And I don't understand why it's, like, totally cool for us to just be like, oh yeah, there's a Nazi, that's fine. Like, no. Like, straight up, no. And, like, it really, like, it's so odd that it's turned into, like, this conversation of decorum, almost, where it's like, well, it wouldn't do to round up the Nazis. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? Yeah. Anyway. Yeah. Heat dome. So this is the first article I read that called it a heat dome. So that I found really, really interesting. A heat dome engulfing Canada and U.S. states of Washington and Oregon is thought to have caused dozens of deaths. Like, you know you're in trouble. Canada saw 103 heat records broken on Monday across the provinces of British Columbia, Alberta, Yukon, and the Northwest Territories. It's 47.9 degrees Celsius. You know you're in trouble when they're calling it a heat dome. Like, okay, let's just pause for a minute. This is a great picture. I really love this picture. Like, what a beautiful spot. This has got to be, I have no idea, what, residents in Oregon? So this is a public fountain in Oregon. And who says that public funding doesn't do stuff, eh? Like, oh yeah, like, if this fountain was a privatized venture, right? It would be like a little spout on the side of, like, a building, and it wouldn't work. You'd, like, turn it and it would, like, give out, like, brown sludge or something. A reminder that these heat waves aren't tragedies, they're crimes. The fossil fuel industry knew decades ago that this is what their pollution was causing, so they spent billions to lie to the public and block climate action. That's exactly the case, right? That these are crimes, and that's how we should start talking about it. That it's not a tragedy. It's not. I mean, it is a tragedy, obviously, but it's criminal, and we know who the criminals are, right? Like, we know who's guilty. It's quite apparent. It's quite in front of our face. And then, of course, in the middle of this, oh, is this one not going to load? Uh-oh, looks like the CIA got a hold of this one. This was a great article because it was a meeting between Xi Jinping and Putin. And they did, there we go. They did a video conference with one another, and it was a reaffirming of the, listen to the name of this treaty. They issued a joint statement and announced to extend the China-Russia Treaty of Good Neighborliness and Friendly Cooperation. How's that for the name of a treaty, right? Like, usually treaties are like, you know, the Treaty of Versailles or the Warsaw Pact or these sorts of things, whereas this is literally like the China-Russia Treaty of Good Neighborliness and Friendly Cooperation. And, like, you got these guys being like, oh, hello. When a situation arises in which one of the contracting parties deems that it is confronted with a threat of aggression, the contracting parties shall immediately hold contacts and consultations in order to eliminate such threats. So it's a military pact, right? Like, these two guys are looking at one another, Russia and China, and they're just being like, yeah, let's bro down, dude. Let's bro down. Let's kind of figure out, because we all know who the threat is. Like, we all know what we're talking about here. So some kind of a arrangement between these two guys, definitely necessary. And yeah, I saw the clips of it. I don't think I've got the clips ready to go. The treaty of maybe not starting a conflict that will result in the deaths of millions of people. Yeah, there's a good one. Like, Let the treaty of like, hey guys, this place is actually kind of nice. Can we not drop nukes on it? Right? Hey, the treaty, the treaty of like, hey, if everybody just chilled the fuck out, we could just like eat berries and shit off trees, right? Like, like, this is the thing that's so infuriating about this climate change conversation and the West and all of this is that literally it's all completely unnecessary. All of it is just totally dumb, the stupidest bullshit that any species could do. Like, if we found a species that actively destroyed its own environment, destroyed any chance of potential future growth or life in that environment, we would study it. We would be like, what in the hell? Like, what is this? Speaking of China, you speaking about ETIM in Xinjiang was completely unknown. So thanks for bringing it up. ETIM, do I know what that means? I'm very, very like heat groggy, but like my brain, this happens all the time. People use like short forms of stuff, and for things that are like obvious, where I'm like, I should know what that means, and then I just don't, and I end up looking and sounding like an idiot all the time. Like people are like literally like, yeah, so I went down to the USA, and I'm like, USA. But hey, I'm happy to inform people. I'm happy to talk about things. Are you talking about the tree planting initiative? Is that what that is? ETIM? Oh, yes. See, this is got the second you say it. Yeah, the East Turkesian Islamic movement. This is really, really effective, and this is effective propaganda. Effective propaganda creates a narrative and normalizes a narrative by excluding facts and evidence and context. And like a lot of what's happening in the Xinjiang region, a lot of what's happening there, if you remove the Uyghur extremists from the conversation and you remove the like ongoing terrorism and like the kind of absurdist war that they're undergoing in Xinjiang, if you just decontextualize everything, then you can pretend that China is this like overwhelming authoritarian state, right? It's like, look at there's security checkpoints and you've got to, if you have an axe that you need to work at it, the axe needs to be connected to something, and like this is all very overwhelming, where all the security and all the lockdowns and the cameras and all this, and I'm like, yeah, dude, because there's literally people walking around like with machetes chopping people's heads off. Like, this was the event that really ramped it up to me in a big, massive way. When 10 men, went into the transit system and murdered 150 people with machetes, right? So for every one man, they killed 10 people. 10 people. Take a machete, and kill 10 people with a machete. Like, yeah, that's fucked. Like, that's enormously fucked up. Like, if you were watching a movie, and in that movie, a group of like 10 dudes went around and were massacring civilians, you would be like, something needs to be done. And so now the Chinese are like doing stuff, and the West, of course, is being like, look at them, they're doing stuff. Isn't it evil? Isn't it evil how they're doing stuff? It's like completely... Robin. That's hilarious. That's hilarious and morbid, but also hilarious. I definitely... For those listening, Robin says, pretty good kill-death ratio, at least. Robin. Yeah, Rip Rumsfeld. Yeah, true OG. 20 years too late. 20 years too late? Are you kidding me? 88 years too late. That guy, I think that's one of those cases where if he had gone in the cradle, we would have been better off as a people. But it's good to know it's good to know that Russia and China are broing down a little bit. Like I mean, don't get me wrong. Putin is a figure unto himself, right? Former KGB. This guy is like a gangster, for sure. He's also a neoliberal, so like but he knows what's good for himself. Like he knows what's good for himself, and he knows what's good for Russia, and well, not necessarily Russia, but he knows that an alliance with China is preferable to trying to get on board with the U.S. And this is one of these cases where, like, here's the U.S. shooting itself right in the foot, right? Like, post-World War II, the U.S. and Russia had a real moment where they could have looked at one another, and Russia was looking at the United States and being like, hey, can we be buds? Like, I'd like to be buds. And the U.S. was like, no, you are the second world. You're Russia. You're the evil Axis, right? And like, we're gonna drop nukes on the Japanese to scare you, Russia. Oh, yep. Putin is an interesting figure. Russia needed someone who would work for Russia. He's done that to a degree. I still think he's a neoliberal capitalist. Ultimately, he hasn't really attempted to reclaim the economic status of the Soviet Union or anything like that. So, but at the same time, he's working in order to, keep the peace. So that's good. And also, like, Putin has on several occasions, I've seen this guy asking people like, "Hey, can we denuclearize? Can we denuclearize? Like, why are all these nukes around? We should probably have less of them." And that's pretty respectable. That's a pretty respectable position to hold. So, like, Putin's interesting because I think on, like, the micro level, like, he's former KGB, he's a gangster, right? He is a gangster. And domestically, there's a lot of stories that you could point out. But on the other side of it, on the macro stuff, I think he gets it right. That's the thing. Like, so that's why I think he ends up being an effective leader for Russia. Because when it comes to world politics, when it comes to working on the big stage, he does get it right. What was Trudeau's affordable? You know what? I just heard about this myself. People in the chat have been talking about it. So, Liberals, affordable housing. Hey, Barnabas, how you doing, bud? Housing announce. Oh my goodness, I cannot spell. That's. Yeah, it's nothing going crazy. It just happened though, so I'd be surprised if it actually cracks up. So, yeah, what can you do? I am told that the Liberals are promising to do something about create more affordable housing in order. But I mean, it's such bullshit. Like, it's obvious. Like, we have housing. Like, we have all the housing we need. We have empty condos. We have stuff. We don't need to build more housing, right? Which is what they're talking about. Oh, we're going to create a fund, and we're going to build some more housing. And what do you think's going to happen to that housing, right? Well, they're going to privatize it, and so much for the affordable housing, right? And it's just a class, and none of it's going to actually help people who are homeless. Like, none of it's actually going to work, even if you believe that the Liberals are going to move forward on it, which I don't know why anybody would. Yeah, the USSR industrializing within roughly 20 years, winning a civil war, building up the military and economy within a span of 20 years, and then defending and winning against the Nazis is insane. Yeah. I shouldn't say that, Robin. Like, you're like, oh, are they making houses? I thought they're just giving... I don't know what's going on with this one. I don't know what the issue actually is. Like... So again, this must be like really, really new information. Yeah, I filled out one of their partisan surveys that only committed to 35,000, some of which are repairs of existing units. Yeah, like the Liberals are effective liars. This is the thing that everybody needs to remember, which is why I'm so skittish about the NDP not actually bringing up the basic income. Like, I'm very skittish about the fact that the NDP are not pounding on the basic income. I'm like, that seems like a real, like, tee up for the Liberals, because the Liberals are effective liars, right? They will absolutely campaign to the left of the NDP. They absolutely will campaign saying, like, yeah, we'll do a basic income. Look, here's a piece of legislation. Like, they'll absolutely do that. And then once it comes time to actually do anything, they'll be like, oops, we can't seem to figure this out. Oh, dear. Like, it's amazing how incompetent the Liberals are when it comes to actually helping people. But when it comes time to, give billions of dollars to corporations, they seem to be able to do that at the drop of a hat. Indigenous people in China, Indigenous people in Canada. Yep. And this is just more of the ongoing. I'm paying pretty close attention to this story because, like, it bothers me that. So, a day after the publication of an article exposing his group's plan to infiltrate Canadian politics and create a white ethno-state in Canada by recruiting teenagers, Tyler L. Russell is pushing forward with an event in Canada's capital. Wednesday's CFPAC model after America First PAC, a white nationalist and Christian nationalist conference held in Florida in February 2021 and organized by white supremacist Nick Fuentes. Nick Fuentes is the leader of a Guayper movement. Like, so they're going to gather in a single spot. All of these Nazis are going to get together and they're going to gather in a single spot. Perfect. Bring out the police wagons, right? Like, just bring out the police wagons. Super easy. These nationalists are so pathetic. They don't actually want to promote their nation in any meaningful way. Yeah, they don't want infrastructure or jobs or anything. Yeah, it's a really odd position to take. That, like, imagine looking out at your society and genuinely believing that the problem is the Jews. Like, what? What? Like, the problem are these not white people. That if it was just white people, everything would be better. Like, it's very, very confusing. Especially, like, have you seen the history of white people? Like, we're not exactly, we don't exactly have a stellar record when it comes to nation building. CNN ripped for glowing coverage of Chinese communists' 100th anniversary. Yeah, right. Like, CNN is being mocked for glowing coverage of the Chinese Communist Party's 100th anniversary. Like, ZNN, that's funny. Like, this is the thing that's so, and like, it's so annoying that American media is like, oh no, how dare we, like, cover a major event. Bill Cosby has been released from prison. Oh yeah. That guy is so old, and I feel like he has paid the ultimate price, which is that his life's work has been discredited. Nobody watches Bill Cosby anymore. Like, nobody pays any attention to Bill Cosby anymore. And anytime Bill Cosby comes up in like when comedians are talking about comedians of the past or any of that kind of stuff, you're always going to. You're always going to think of the fact that he was a systemic serial rapist, right? Like, there's no getting around it. You can't really listen to some of his comedy any longer because the whole time you're just like he's talking about, like, chasing after women, and you're like, oh yeah, we know how you chase after women, Bill. You're right, Robin. She is very unintuitively pronounced she, like the pronoun. Yeah. It's the X. It's the X that gets me. I look at that X and I'm just like, it's gotta be she, right? It's gotta be like she, right? Onward. New Yorkers got an emergency alert. Limit energy use to prevent power outages because of the excessive heat. It has begun. And in the midst of this, we've got a new unmarked grave right? 182 unmarked graves discovered near residential schools in BC's interior. So it's a smaller one, but it's yet another one, and it's just gonna keep unfolding. Just in time for Canada Day. Just in time for Canada Day. Israeli settlers to cease illegal occupation of West Bank outpost, regional council says. Yeah, we'll see about that. Oh, thanks, Barnabas. Is it you guys? It's your fault? You sent us the heat wave? You jerk. Yeah. Every school will have them. You're right about that, bud. Every single school is going to have something. Canada must acknowledge Peru's Castillo presidency. Yeah, I mean, we should acknowledge... so Peru just elected a leftist leader, edging out a victory against the fascist incumbent by very, very thin margin, in fact. Like, literally like a single percentage. So the society is fairly well split. But Canada still hasn't, like... We still pretend like Juan Guaido is the leader of Venezuela, right? Like, we'll invite Juan Guaido to Canada to shake his hand and have a photo op and all that kind of stuff. Meanwhile, it's like, no, the people of Venezuela consistently have elected Nicolas Maduro. He's the leader of Venezuela. So the idea that Canada is going to stand up and acknowledge Castillo as the president, even though he won an election, that's not how we roll, baby. That's not how us Western imperialists actually roll. Yeah, it only seems small because of the 751 in Saskatchewan. That's a big one, man. Like, that's a big moment. That one really, I'm not afraid to say that one really, like, put me on my ass. Like, I found about the 751 in Saskatchewan, and it just totaled me. It, like, ate a complete day for me. Like, I couldn't do anything. And this is, like, the existential nightmare of this is so, and the thing that's making it so much more difficult is that, like, we are exhuming these mass graves, and there are people still walking around pretending as though Canada isn't systemically racist, that that's in the past, like all this kind of stuff, and it makes it so much harder. Like, if there was like a universal outcry on this, if everybody was like, oh my goodness, this is horrible, we need to have kind of like a national referendum, right? And that's what I like what's happening about Canada Day, is that it's turning, that the people who are pushing for the Cancel Canada Day movement and who are attempting to put that at the front and center, which has been like fairly successful, I would say. There are lots of places that are canceling their Canada Day celebrations in the wake of this. But what I hope it does is I hope it turns Canada Day into, instead of it being like just a day of zealous absurdity, it turns into a day of national referendum where we all look at ourselves and ask ourselves, what does it mean to be a Canadian? What kind of society do we want to build? What kind of society do we want to live in? Is this a society worth celebrating? Do we feel as though we have created something worthy of celebration? And right now, I'm like, no. Like, what is there to celebrate in Canada? Really? Like, oh, we've created a society where you can get food and shelter. Like, that seems to be the talking point from the right. Oh, Canada's great. It's got food and shelter. Like, oh, okay. So, like, the most basic shit. Yeah, I actually think these heat waves are starting to get through to apolitical people in a way that even COVID hasn't. Well, and lots of people are starting to recognize that the way that we dealt with COVID is how we are going to deal with climate change. And most people are like, well, that's not good. That's not good. We got to do better than that. City TV Toronto Facebook page. Did you just lie to me? I'm seeing lots of... How far down am I having to look? You would think that the Prime Minister of Canada would actually, like, well, all I'm seeing is, like, Canada's Got Talent. Oh, it's because I'm on Canada's Got Talent. No, I'm not. No, I'm on City TV. They're just like, Canada's Got Talent. Apply now. Oh, I should apply. I should apply to be on Canada's Got Talent. Did I just click on, like, the dumbest link possible? Is it City News? Maybe City News? Come on. Like, okay, so this is what I am starting to gather from this story is that even the news organizations are like, sure, liberals. That's what I'm seeing. Like, nobody's, like, losing their mind about this. All radios in Vancouver will talk about First Nations issues and topics all day, July 1st. That's cool. That's cool. Nick, I've only seen performative stuff so far. The only good thing I've seen that actually does something is the radios talking about stuff. I know that here in Toronto, there's several wards that are canceling their celebrations. Straight up, just like, we're not doing fireworks, we're not doing any of that kind of stuff. I'm sure that there's plenty of that that's going to still happen. But, so there is movement. People are, like, I don't know why anybody would want to be like, yeah, Canada, right now. I think most people are probably just like, I just like fireworks. You know, fireworks are nice. You go, you look up at the sky, they blow up. EU to add Canada, 10 other states to safe travel list. Oh, that's good. That's good. Yeah, rich black guys, rich white guys getting away with sex crimes. Yeah, one would think that Bill Cosby would just, like, languish. Yeah, I do what you're saying. I do hear what you're saying here, Nick. Like, canceling is performative. That, like, if we were, like, what would be something that was done that is not performative? Well, launching an investigation would be not performative, right? Creating, like, a document that actually is like, this is what happened, right? Here is our history on this issue. That would be not performative. No longer engaging in the activity. That would be not performative, right? No longer attacking First Nations people. Maybe building water pipes to First Nations reserves. Maybe doing what we can to actually alleviate the situation. That would be not performative. Hey, how about we stop selling weapons to the Saudi Arabians so that they can enact the Yemeni genocide? How about that? Canceling is a ball of string. It is important to remember that this is like year one, right? And my hope is that this kind of movement builds further momentum. That year over year, we steadily begin to treat Canada Day as a day of reflection. That's my hope, is that this sort of thing steadily moves us towards less being like, yeah, Canada, we're the greatest, and more into like, okay, Canada, we should reflect about what happened over the year, what did we learn, what have we figured out, and we should actually be able to talk about it that way. No, let's spend $100 million suing the First Nations school survivors instead. Yeah, capitalist governments. Yeah, there's something that we could do that would be not performative. Stop fighting these people in court. It's like, just stop fighting them in court. How about that? I don't think it made it through, DM. I don't think it made it through. I don't know how to resolve this, bud. Sorry. I looked around, like, nobody cares. Nobody cares. Everybody's just like, yeah, Justin Trudeau. Oh, here we go. I think I found, 48 minutes. No way. Did he get a haircut and he shaved in the whole thing? Oh, he's getting ready for an election. He's getting ready. 48 minutes, though. Oh, no, this is like questions. Okay. Let's see what this goober has to say.
Hello, everyone. Bonjour à tous. Thank you, Deirdre, for that introduction and for everything you do for the community as President and CEO of the Shepherds of Good Hope. I'm looking forward to visiting the new units that are being built here in Canada that will allow you to help even more vulnerable people. It's great to be here with you, Minister Hussein.
The Liberals are so good at presentation, right? They're so good at presenting themselves and they know like how they have presented Justin Trudeau is like he gets this salt and pepper beard all of a sudden right after a blackface scandal. He's got the flowing hair because we're in the middle of like a pandemic, and so now, like he's gonna kick off the election by saying the Liberals defeated the virus. That's what he's gonna do. He's gonna say the Liberals defeated the virus, and he's gonna come out with his hair like this, freshly shaven, and everybody's gonna be like, yeah, back to normal, because we're fucking stupid.
And Mayor Watson for this important announcement today. I'm glad Councillor Hughley can join us as well. This pandemic has laid bare gaps and inequalities in our society that we must continue to address. That includes the fact that far too many people do not have a roof over their head. And that's why we're here this afternoon. Because we know that building a safer, more resilient Canada starts by making sure that everyone has a safe place to call home.
Since 2015, our government has made unprecedented investments in housing across the country. And last year, we saw that the pandemic made the need even more urgent. We saw the challenges and devastation caused by this crisis. We had to act now, and we established the Rapid Housing Initiative.
When we launched the Rapid Housing Initiative last year, we projected it would create up to 3,000 affordable housing units right across the country. Well, in March, we exceeded expectations, and that number became over 4,700 new units. Well, today, we're reaching even higher. We're investing an additional $1.5 billion in the Rapid Housing Initiative for a total of over 9,200 new homes for Canadians who need it most. That means thousands of people with a safe place to stay. Thousands of people for whom life will get brighter. We're doing what it takes to make sure that everyone gets a roof over their head. Aujourd'hui, on a investi.
Yeah, this is a complete grift, right? Like this is the complete grift that so the government spends your money in order to build more units that we don't need because we have plenty of units, right? There's tons of empty space, right? There's tons and tons of empty space owned by the billionaire class. And what are they going to do? They're going to build these affordable units. They're going to privatize them, right? So the billionaire class is going to own them. And what do you think is going to happen then? How affordable do you think that's going to be, right? We know what the housing market looks like. We know what the rental market looks like. Like, they're not saying anything in regards to, like, rent control, right? Price control, none of that. So this is a grift, right? And we should accept that it is a grift and that these guys are grifting us, that they're effective liars and propagandists, right? And most Canadians will be duped into this bullshit. Like, so I don't know. Like, what else?
Today we are investing an additional $1.5 billion to create more affordable housing for those in need. With this new investment in the Rapid Housing Initiative, we are moving from our original goal of 3,000 units to over 9,200 new affordable housing units for the most vulnerable. Here in Canada, the Hope Living Project, I'll be visiting this afternoon, is already under construction. Thanks to new investments through our program, the first floor of the facility will be converted to create new housing for people experiencing or at risk of homelessness, specifically seniors or members of Indigenous communities. Housing is a basic need.
Yeah, okay. Like, it's just going to be a bunch more, like, pulling at your heartstrings, right? This is a project of land privatization. That is what this is. That they are using the populace's need for shelter, of which we have a ton already. Like, this idea that there's, like, a housing shortage is a joke. Like, it's a pathetic joke. We could literally requisition any of this housing. That's exactly it, Matt. And then, so what they do is they'll build these affordable housing units on Crown land that has been traditionally owned by the government. And then, what are they going to do? They're going to privatize it, and they're going to sell it to private investors. So now the government no longer owns that land. It's been privatized. And they don't care what's on the land, right? The land is what's important. So this is a land transfer. That's the purpose of this, is to transfer land away from the public sector into the private sector. Yeah, they could have done this at any time. Dad could have done this at any time. Well, and this is meaningless. Like, just take the housing we have. Like, tell these guys, like, oh, you've got a skyscraper filled with empty properties. Well, 40% of this needs to be considered, quote-unquote, affordable housing. And, of course, they don't define what affordable housing means. It's just a buzzword, right? What is affordable housing? What is that? What does that mean, affordable housing? Like, and why are we talking about affordability at all? How about just, like, housing? Like, why are we dicking around with this? I mean, we know why we're dicking around with this, because billionaires need to make a whole lot of money, right? If he says public-private partnerships, I'm going to cream. I think the Liberals are no longer going to use this phrase, public-private partnership. We're cottoning on. We're starting to understand what that actually is. Right? That public-private partnership, like, it sounded nice at first, but then people sat down and started to actually think about it, and they realized, oh, public-private partnership, that's fucking fascism. Oh, okay, buddy, you're gonna come. You guys gotta see what I'm dealing with. Pug, flying through space. Flying through space, it's tiny pugs, pugs in space. Oh, I know, buddy, I know. He really hates it when I do that, but I love it, so I'm gonna do it. Yes, isn't that right, my little Pugsylvania? Yeah, also, you think Junior is going to start an investigation on his father as Minister of Law or whatever, there is an argument, someone created this argument, and I actually think it's pretty effective, that there was a sharp decline in the residential schools under Pierre Elliott Trudeau. That you could create a case that says that Pierre Elliott Trudeau was instrumental in reducing the amount of these institutions. Now, I would like to see an investigation anyway, because I'd like to see what he was saying about it. Like, was he saying these residential schools are a problem and we need to get rid of them? Like, was he saying, like, this is a stain on the Canadian consciousness? Was he saying that kind of stuff? Or was he saying, like, oh, the churches have kind of bungled this project of assimilation, right? We should take control of the project of assimilation and continue to assimilate these people into our culture. Like, what? Because, like, while the residential school system got shut down, a lot of the things that the residential schools were doing get transferred into the foster care system and the child care system, right? So the government just kind of takes direct control over it. Now, I'd be surprised to find out that, like, social workers are enacting a genocide with, like, mass graves and shit. But, yeah, wouldn't be the first time. So, but I agree with you. Like, we're never going to see an investigation with Justin Trudeau in power. It's just never going to happen. Yeah, hey, Justin, could you toss in some UBI while you're at it, since you're in a promising mood? Yeah, they're never going to do that. They're never going to do that. I know, buddy. I love you too, buddy. I know. That was sudden. Yeah, he gave away his game by starting his speech thanking a CEO. Yeah, Trump style. Yeah, we're here to talk about the homeless. We're here to deal with the homeless, but I'd first like to thank the guy that I'm giving all this money to. Yeah. Yeah, they've been doing this for decades, yeah. Trudeau needs a MyPillow lunatic friend like Trump has. I love this Trudeau, like it's like he's the Pillsbury Doughboy or something. Him pronouncing Canada how the Haudenosaunee would. So it is annoying. It is annoying. Now, the invisible hand will handle everything, yeah? All hail the invisible hand. May money reign eternally. Yeah, $900 a month is not affordable. Yeah, like, rents are outrageous right now. Rents are outrageous. Yeah, he paddles his little legs. Not able to stick around tonight, is quite busy. Just wanted to pop in and say hi. Hi, Axel. Yes, almost all of them rent out rooms to compensate because they're on OW, which only provides about 700. Yeah. Privatize the residential schools. Exactly. Well, and that's exactly it. Like was it an attempt to actually ameliorate this problem? Was it an attempt to actually like eliminate the problem, or was it an attempt to simply deprivatize, to nationalize the problem, right? I thought it was 30% of income. But if you're not making any income, like if you got zero income. Anyway. June 24th, basic income fireside chat with Evelyn Forget. Evelyn Forget, if you don't know, is like the person who brought the basic income conversation back to Canada. She literally, like, she's an economist from the University of Winnipeg, I believe. It's either Winnipeg or Manitoba, I can't remember which offhand. And she literally said that she was working in the basement of the facility and just came across these boxes that had been, like, abandoned, and found out that, oh, this is the Dauphin experiment. This is the Dauphin basic income experiment. They literally had these boxes and just, like, abandoned them in the basement of this institution. And she goes through them, and lo and behold, what does she find? Oh, the basic income completely worked. It was a success. Here are the successes of the basic income. We should talk about it again. The woman on the top left looks remarkable. I don't know who Anita Sarkeesian is, but I assume that this is going to be a worthwhile watch, but I obviously won't play it now. Oh, hey. Measuring 100 years of the CPC. How long is this? 3 minutes. Let's go. Let's go.
全是几不成熟，别跑起来。
1921.
我们今天所做的一切，无上光荣。
This would make a sick anime.
在危急关头挽救了红军的命运，挽救了中国革命。
保卫家乡，保卫工科，保卫花蕾，保卫全中国。
淮海战役的胜利是老百姓用小推车推出来的。
That's becoming the norm, right? Like, paying 90% of your income, like, that's becoming more normal. And when people are paying, like, rent is getting to be absurd. And people are pointing out that, like, I am paying more in rent than it would cost me to pay a mortgage, right? That we're paying more in rent than a mortgage would cost. But we can't get a mortgage because we're competing with billionaires, right? And who they're going to sell with? They're going to sell to the billionaire every single time, right? So And the billionaires have every incentive in the world to just jack the rates. If it was up to them, they would have us paying like 120% of our wage. And they'd just be like, well, just go into debt. To who? Oh, to us. Right? Yeah, what the fuck are we supposed to do? Stop voting liberal, that's what. Stop voting liberal, stop voting conservative, right? Just stop it. Like, I don't understand why that's so difficult for people. Just stop it. But, like, there's so much of what, like, oh, we're in the middle of a climate change crisis. We need to stop. Like, we need to stop doing stuff. Oh, we're in the middle of an economic crisis. We need to stop. Like, we just need to stop. It's like, we literally need to fully stop. I'm of the opinion that we, like, need to fully stop everything we're doing and, like, redraw our Constitution, right? Like, add into the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. People should have food and shelter. That should be part of the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. We should be nationalizing huge sections of our economy. Huge sections of our economy. Well, it was that or a dangerous area with cockroaches, fleas, or leaks, or mold. Some places it's 100% and more. It comes with bed bugs. Yeah, exactly, right? Like, it's... the bed bug situation here in Toronto has actually improved over time, but it's 100% because the Landlord and Tenant Board here in Toronto has essentially villainized landlords. Like, the legislation when it comes to bed bugs... is explicitly like, no, you don't get to like, you have to hire an exterminator. You have to hire an exterminator. And I remember I dealt with bed bugs here in Toronto. I had a unit that was infested with bed bugs, and it was like pulling teeth. My landlord just refused to do anything about it. They refused to actually deal with it. And I had to take them to the Landlord and Tenant Board about it. And they ended up paying me like a month's rent back because what they were doing was so stupid and insane. And then I ended up moving to another unit, and then that unit also ended up having bed bugs, which I noticed right away because I'd just gone through this ridiculous bed bug saga. And so I contacted the landlord, and they started to give me like some pushback. So I immediately was like, I'm going to hire an exterminator myself. I'm no longer dealing with you. You can take it out of my rent. or I'm going to take it out of the rent. If you push back on me, I'm going to Landlord and Tenant Board immediately. And so I hired my own exterminator. It cost $200. Like, it cost 200 fucking bucks to get, here I was a young kid when this was all happening. And I seriously thought this has gotta cost thousands of dollars. For all the hassle, for all the difficulty, this has got to be an enormous procedure. Literally $200. The guy comes in twice, right? Sprays around, does this thing. I'm like, okay, thanks. Leaves, right? And, like, this is how sociopathic and cheap these landlords are, right? My rent is $1,000 at the time, right? You're telling me $200 and you're whinging about it? Get fucked. Get fucked. Like, these, like... there's something mentally wrong with landlords. There's something mentally wrong with these people. Yeah, Ward, the security of person thing gets interpreted a lot by the populace as being like food and shelter, but the legal system and the privatized system, they don't see it that way. They don't see it that way. They see security of person in like military terms, right? They don't see that as a food and shelter issue. That we live in a society that does not guarantee food and shelter to its citizens. It's not enshrined in our Constitution or anything like that. It's a pretty big problem. Always read reviews of any building you're thinking of moving in. Nowadays, the photos on the listings aren't even the available unit. Yeah, exactly. Well, and then on top of that, Matt, like if there is a review site, they'll always pad the reviews, right? There's always like fake reviews in there. Yeah, rich people tend to be the cheapest, and I don't mean by the Gucci exterminator. Luckily, I'm in the country now. It's affordable and nicer place to be. I know we should sue the government. Yeah. I mean, by the time you actually sue the government and get something together and actually do something, it's easier to just like take over a political party, right? Or to create a new political movement or a new political party. But yeah, I'm on the board with that. And I've been talking to plenty of people living in the city here they're really contemplating a move out of the city into, especially as it's become easier for them to just simply work from home. You work from home and you do things that way. So why not move out to the country, right? The poverty party, yeah, I like it. The poverty party, but you just know that would get twisted by the corporate media to be like, they're the party of poverty. They want everybody to be poor, right? Like, oh, okay. That's the thing. You got to be careful, right? Like, because not only are the corporate capitalists extremely effective liars, the populace is largely gullible, right? The populace is very, very just like, the poverty party. I don't want to vote for the poverty party. I want to be rich. I want to be poor, right? That's your base. The Gucci party of Canada. Capitalism and democracy are incompatible. Capitalism and life are incompatible. Oh, yeah. Yeah, poll shows Americans starting to reject capitalism, support socialism. This guy here.
All right, so I got a new poll for you guys here.
The good politics guy.
It's a couple days old, but I wanted to bring it to your attention because this is one of the
Is he actually going to show the poll?
Inequalities
yeah.
and
I think I saw this poll.
This
is what this poll that he's showing us says is that capitalism amongst Gen Z especially is really, really starting to decline, and even in like younger Republicans, like, yeah, like I don't like the only people who are actually going to be like, yay, capitalism, are the people who are the beneficiaries, right? And when you actually get to talking to these people about the system that they live in, they don't know anything about it, right? All they know is like, I'm working and I'm putting my nose to the grindstone and it's happening, right? So it's like, yeah, it's an inevitability that's going to happen. Like it's just like you get used to hearing crickets and birds instead of traffic and buses. There's something nice about that, Ruth. There's something nice about that. I think about that from time to time. Like, why am I still living in the city, right? Like, and one of the things I want to talk about more and more is, like, I don't necessarily feel good about going places in the city right now. Like, this capitalist system, like, when I go get my groceries, I'm like, it's exhausting to, like, look around and see these wage slaves, right? See all these people who are entrapped in a capitalist system that's actively working to destroy and abandon them. It's just become like very difficult for me to want to participate in this society in meaningful ways, right? Like I don't want to buy things. I don't want to shop. Like I see the trail of misery that, like, even something like this iPhone, right? Like I've got, or this smartphone. Like I've got this smartphone here, and I'm like, I feel gross about it. I feel gross about the whole thing. I feel gross about interacting with all of this. But if you don't interact with all this, then you're completely cut off, right? You have to interact in some way. Well, I think what I'm going to do. Here, why don't I put this? I'm gonna go use the washroom for a second.
All right, so I got a new poll for you guys
here
from
for
Axios, and it's a couple days old, but I wanted to bring it to your attention because this is one of the few examples that we have where it seems like it's a little bit of a good indication or a justification for the things that we are doing and talking about in the message that we are trying to get out there in our frustrations and rejections of our current capitalist system. And so here's the polling results. So America's continued move towards socialism. So just half of younger Americans now hold a positive view of capitalism, and socialism's appeal in the U.S. continues to grow, driven by Black Americans and women, according to a new Axios Momentive poll. So here are the details. The pandemic has caused millions of Americans, including many younger Republicans, to reevaluate their political and economic worldview. That's likely because of two factors. One, a renewed focus on deep societal inequalities, and the tangible upsides of unprecedented levels of government intervention. They say, quote, "The pandemic is sure to have a lasting impact for decades to come," said John Cohen, the chief researcher for this group that did this polling. So here are the details. Just 66% of Republicans and GOP leaners aged 18 to 34 have a positive view of capitalism. That kind of blew my mind. 66% of GOP leaners, so young Republicans basically, only 66%, only 2/3 of them have a positive view of capitalism. I mean, that's like the whole selling point of the Republican Party, right? They're fervent capitalists. And so this is even better when you look at the contrast. So this is down from 81% in January of 2019. So 2 years ago, okay, they had 80% of young Republicans on their side in regards to capitalism. Now it's just 66%, almost a 20-point drop-off in 2 years. So, obviously we had the pandemic over the last year, and that might have had a significant amount of sway over some young people as they see how unstable this system is, and you see, average Americans struggling and having to line up in food lines all across the country, people being evicted and thrown out onto the streets. Meanwhile, we have billionaires like Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos amassing literally tens of billions, if not hundreds of billions, in addition to their current wealth. So it's very obvious what has been happening over the last year, especially during the pandemic, and why these dramatic shifts would have happened. But still, 81% to 66%, that's absolutely mind-blowing. So
well, and Matt, like, how about all that land out there? Why don't they give everyone a slice? Like, we literally did that. This is the one of the most amazing detached absurdities that exists in the discourse today, is that you have all of these like rural farmer types, or like somebody like Jordan Peterson, right? That they're all saying like, oh, we did all this ourselves. We pulled ourselves up by our bootstraps, and hard work and all of this initiative and all this. There is a piece of legislation, Canada Dominion Act. So at the beginning of Canada, right, it was a federal law that received royal assent 1872. It allowed for lands in Western Canada to be granted to individuals, colonization companies, the Hudson's Bay Company, railway construction, municipalities, religious group. The act set aside lands. The act also set a land for national parks, so on and so forth. But what it really did, from 1870 to 1930, roughly 600,000 land patents were issued to homesteaders. So what it allowed is that it allowed a single individual, a white British man, let's be extremely straight about this. It allowed a rich, not a rich, but a white British man to move into the prairie provinces, 80 million hectares, and settle there for free. Essentially, I think there was the cost of like an application cost of like $1 or something, or like $10, and so what happens is you have all of these white British men move into the prairies and settle them, and they get like 300 acres for free, right? 300 acres just for free. You've got it, right? And yeah, of course, they worked hard, and yeah, of course, they did all that kind of stuff, but that's a massive opportunity. Like, that's a massive, massive, massive opportunity to receive that kind of land. And what happens? Well, they take the land that they have and they give it to their sons, right? And then their sons turn around and give it to their sons, and then their sons turn around and give it to their sons, so that they can sit there as primary beneficiaries of the largest government handout in the history of the nation, complaining about government handouts. That's how, like, detached from reality the conservative movement has become. Like, a guy like Jordan Peterson, his family are ranchers, right? They are 100% beneficiaries of this. That his family lives there because of this, the Canada Dominions Act. And then he gets to turn around and tell everybody, no, it's about your own hard work and initiative. Like, so somebody who's so detached from their own family history should not be trusted as an individual. Like, just should not, like, you shouldn't listen to somebody who doesn't even know their own family history. Divide the landmass of the surface of Earth by the amount of people living on it. Yeah, that's a decent idea. At this stage in the game for myself, I would just be happy, like I like living in this like a little apartment that I've got. I don't need like a big land thing. I don't need any of that. I just want to. And like the idea that like of private ownership in the first place, the more you think about it, the more it's absurd it becomes, right? Like we don't own any of this. Like we don't own any of this. We are at best renting it. Right? We're and not even like renting it. We're like at best just stewards of it. Because we're temporary, right? We're not here permanently, right? We're here temporarily, and we're just sort of trying to arrange how this works. And instead of arranging a system that allows a temporary being to just sort of exist in the space for a temporary amount of time before they leave, instead of that, we're creating this like system of enslavement that says to people like, you need to grind your life away so that this ephemeral concept of money can pool underneath billions. It's insane. It's insane. It just got split up massively generation to generation. That's what my white grandfather told me. Yeah, that definitely did happen. Like, but even then, like, I have family who are rural farmers. And they experienced that where they received like just like a parcel of a parcel, right? It's split up, and then they turned around and sold it for several $1 million. So it's like they're making well. Well, hello, Mary Wheeler. For everybody in chat right now, be really, really nice to Mary Wheeler. That's my mother. Hello, Mother Mary. I'm so happy that you're here. Yeah, we should just buy 5-bedroom homes like Axel. Problem solved. Well, and Axel's a funny case, and I'm actually really happy to have a capitalist who's taken interest in this chat. He's not in the chat currently, but who's taken interest in this because, like, he kind of just proves my case for me with the absurd statements that he makes, right? And he's sort of the case study of, like, what happens when capitalism actually does work. Well, when capitalism actually does work, you end up with somebody who has like a house and the cars and all this kind of stuff and doesn't really have empathy, lacks compassion, is completely fine with homelessness, and is kind of detached from the reality of everybody else's lived experiences, right? And so I'm more than happy to have somebody like this in the chat because it's just like proves the point, right? Like, yeah, this is what capitalism does. You end up with a rich cocksucker who thinks he knows everything. I'm happy that you didn't end up as a farmer in rural Manitoba. I'm also happy about that, Mom. It could have happened. Yeah, it could have. You would have been a much different person today and not in a good way. Yeah, there's something about, like, just, like, the rural farmer attitude of, like, believing that everything that happens around them is of their own creation, right? And I gotta feel like there's, like, an incestuous thing that happens with the political system where these politicians, like, they want these farmers' votes, and so they just, like, pump up their ego, and nobody's standing around being like, no, like, we're part of larger systems, like, we should pay homage to our creator and to the earth that sustains us, right? And we should do things to make sure that everybody is taken care of. And the thing that baffles me the most about this sort of rural farmer mindset is, like, I feel like we could boil the poverty issue and the homelessness issue into very practical terms. That once you accept that this is a problem that needs to be solved, I think that the rural farmers are the ones that would come up with the most streamlined ideas. Because they're the ones that would just be like, well, we've got all these empty houses, just put people in them. What's the problem? Right? Oh, well, we've got this monetary system, just give people money. What's the problem? Right? But the hang-up isn't the practical solution. Like, we have the practical solutions. The hang-up is an ideology. And it's this ideology that fundamentally worships money. Right? That I have money, therefore I am good. And we are terrible tenants, Ruth. We destroy everything. I was thinking more like suburbs, that everyone gets a house/yard where you can apply to apartment buildings as well. Yeah, that would be lovely. Comrade Mom. Hi, Mary. Mrs. Wheeler, you raised John well. Like, look at all the love that my mother is getting. That's so nice. Welcome, Mary. Hi, Mary. You did a wonderful job. See, Mom, I've done such a good job of tricking these people. Now seems to be a good time to remind everybody, please like, please share, please subscribe, please send it around on your social media, all that kind of stuff. Let people know I exist in the world. And hey, think about donating to my Patreon. Think about give me some money. Put some money in my bank account. We still have a capitalist system, unfortunately. Exactly, Robin. He deserves it. He works hard, unlike all the people I know who work 2 jobs and live with roommates. Yeah, that's the thing that kills me about the capitalist idea of, like, we worked hard, right? Is that they have built in this sort of delusion that hard work equals wealth, and it's completely false. Like, sure, like, hard work can equal wealth, right? It can do that, but what it actually does, like, people who live in Africa, right? People who live in Africa, and, like, women who have to walk a mile in order to get, like, water that they bring back to their family, right? Those people don't get any, like, their reward is literally the water that they carry, right? And you think that's not hard work? Like, ew. Oh yeah, dude, Axel's not going to give me anything. Capitalists don't give people money, dude. Like, that's not what happens. Anyway. The guy who ended up with our family land considered himself hard done by if he had to work for more than 800 hours a year. Yeah, exactly, right? Like, and like, these farmers are working jobs. And remember, guys, this is Canada, right? So they don't work over winter, right? Winter comes, so you're talking like November, December, January, February, March, right? There's like literally this like whole section of the year where these farmers just sort of tool around, right? Yeah. And this is like the backbone of the Conservative Party. And I'm happy to see that, like, it's so funny to me too, because like the people who are most likely to kind of be climate change deniers are these rural farmer type, and it's like, do you guys are you guys not noticing it? Like, are you not like connected at all to what's going on? Like, they're complaining and whinging about this carbon tax, but like, do you guys not understand that like this desert area here is just going to keep expanding? That the heat wave that's going along the West Coast right now is going to continue to desertify everything, that everything's going to get significantly worse, that everything's going to continue going in this way. Do you not realize that this is happening? Like, have you not noticed that when you are farming your fields, that things are changing? Have you not seen it? And like, you know, these guys who are like, oh, I work so hard. Well, if you're working hard, you should be able to notice that, like, this desert area is expanding. That all of this, like, you should see this happening to your land. You should be at least hearing stories of your fellow farmers being like, yeah, my land is becoming more and more arid. Yeah, Matt, that's exactly what it is, man. Climate change will only become apparent to them when they catch on fire, literally. Like, it's going to take some kind of drastic event. An event that's so drastic that it's going to be irreversible, right? Like, as I was saying yesterday, like, literally, Florida is going to have to be underwater, right? Like, the coast is going to have to literally be underwater. New York is going to have to be underwater. There's going to have to be this massive hurricane that comes through and fundamentally alters the maps. We're literally going to have to redraw the maps. And these for these people to actually start going like, oh, that thing everybody said was real turned out to be real, and then there's the difficulty of admitting you were wrong, right? Like, I do think that there's like probably a good portion of them that are still banging on about this climate change thing being fake because it's too difficult to admit that they were wrong. Mom, thanks for popping in. I'm super happy to see you. I'm so happy you just popped in to say hello. Have to take bear spray to your brother for his camping trip. Oh goodness. Hopefully they're not having too much trouble with the bears. Well, say hello to them. Thanks for popping in, Mom. That's so nice. It's so nice when family comes in. You can see it in your daily life, even the amount of flying insects. When's the last time you had to clean your windshield on a long trip? That's a really good point, Onward. I do remember that. I remember being a young kid and being like, there's just like flies all over. And now you're right. Like, it's just like completely clear the whole way. Yeah, another indicator of climate change, way more fish flies than ant flies in southwestern Ontario. Well, and there's, I was talking to JB about this. Because of climate change, it's confusing the wildlife. They don't know what to do. They don't know where to go, right? Their usual patterns are being disrupted. And that this disruption, like when you have creatures who go into areas that they're not normally a part of, right? When they go into these areas, that's how you get diseases, right? You have species and creatures who don't typically interact with one another suddenly interacting, and like, well, this creature has been carrying around this disease, that it's normal, the stuff that it normally interacts with is resilient to it or has gotten used to it, but now they're interacting with new species and new creatures who are not, and so that's going to spread it through, and so we're going to end up with like a new type of COVID, right? A new type of virus because of these species crossing over who have never interacted before, right? How possible do you think a radical evangelical takes power? I mean, very possible, and it's their divine duty to bring the rapture, aka end the world in nuclear disaster another way. Dude, that's like literally every single administration from the Republicans since Nixon. The George Bush administration was an enormous radical evangelical movement, was backing him. Reagan had an enormous radical evangelical movement. Reagan himself was like a delusional madman in regards to his belief in evangelicalism. Like literally, people would leaders of foreign powers would talk to Reagan, and they would walk away being like, "This guy's fucking insane." Like they genuinely would walk away from Reagan being like, "Oh fuck, this guy's delusional." And like you listen to guys like Mitt Romney talk, and like Mitt Romney's nuts. Like he thinks that there's going to be like rapture events and stuff like this, like Mike Pence, the last vice president under Trump. Mike Pence is a true believer, dude. Go listen to some of his speeches. Like when George W. Bush said that they were going to enact a crusade, when he said that they were launching a crusade, he wasn't being hyperbolic. Like that wasn't like flowery language that he was using. They are launching a crusade. That's what they are doing. It is a Christian crusade that was launched throughout the region. And sure, they're there to steal oil, and sure, they're there to steal resources, but it's also an attempt to cleanse the region of an inferior, godless religion, right, as far as they're concerned. So evangelical Christianity is do I believe that it'll take power? Well, it's taken power several times already, right? Like the Bushes, the Reagans, even Donald Trump. Like Donald Trump himself was not a radical evangelical, but he was in bed with those guys. He was doing what they wanted. Like, and it's extremely likely, like once we get through this Trump period, there's this like Trump period that's going on, and we're going to get tired of it. Even the Republican Party is going to get tired of it. And the only people that are going to be left in the Republican Party are these insane evangelicals who have already proven that they're politically astute enough to be able to seize power. And so they'll seize power again. And they're going to continue the crusades, and they're going to continue doing this stuff. Interestingly, it does seem as though it's actually the Democrats who are the ones that are more interested in doing the extreme warring, right? That it's the Democrats that are the ones, like, sure, the war was started by George Bush, Like the Iraq War was started by George Bush and the Afghanistan War, but it's the Democrats who expanded it into Libya, Syria, who expanded it to Yemen and Oman, right? Like it's the Democrats that did all that. Yeah, less insects, less birds. These things add up but aren't noticed. Yeah, they're not worried about climate change. Jesus Christ will take care of it. I like that. Well, and in many ways they view what they're doing to be like a seeding of the ground, right? If you believe that there's a rapture event coming that you're on the right side of, that like Jesus is going to come down, there's going to be a big rapture that you're definitely the beneficiary of, and Jesus is going to purge the land of the non-believers and the unrighteous, i.e. the Muslims, right? Like, you're just getting it all ready for him, right? And if you're a person who's like, the end times are upon us, well, then all of this climate change stuff, all of the like absurd nonsense that you yourself are inflicting on the world is just proof that the end times are coming and Jesus will come down and save everyone, right? Like, it's highly delusional. It's highly delusional, but it's the world we live in, and I don't think we're gonna wake up and do anything about it until it's way too late. RCMP are now investigating Winnipeg scientists fired from lab for possible transfer of intellectual property to China. The intellectual property thing is interesting because part of the deal that we made with China, and something that, of course, the Americans don't admit and completely forget to tell everybody of, is the deal was China will make all our stuff, but they get to keep the intellectual property rights. Like, China doesn't have the same laws that we have in regards to intellectual property rights. Like, as far as they're concerned, they're just like, yeah, we'll take this and we'll use it. And that's really the way most nations have developed, right? This idea that like we have intellectual property rights, like this is a very new phenomenon. And really when you pause and think about it, it's kind of insane. Like it has like a real, like, as if the privatization and the public, the privatization of land was bad enough, and the privatization of resources was bad enough. But now you're saying that we're going to privatize ideas, that ideas are private property, right? Like, it gets kind of insane. Like, ideas are private property, that you can't just use somebody's idea. That seems insane. And it is insane, because we're an insane people. We've lost our minds. It was nice that my mom popped in. It was really nice. Because there's something like, every so often I get like that sense of, and I think this is common amongst millennials, where we get like imposter syndrome. We feel like we're a fake person, and like what we're doing is not necessarily valuable, and it doesn't matter what's valuable. And there, like when I first started to do these live streams, and I first started to do the YouTube channel generally, there's like this kind of sense of like embarrassment in a way, right? Like it's that I'm doing it, and like really I'm going to be a YouTube person, and I see people around me, they say things like, oh, influencers are so dumb and the whole YouTube culture is so dumb, and it's hard to disagree with them. And so like when I started to do this, there was a part of me of like, what's my family going to say? Like, what's my family going to think about it? And I can tell that my dad is like coming around. Like, I can tell that he's coming around on it. But he was always sort of like being nice but a little skeptical. But my mom loves me, and she popped in and said hello. That's so beautiful. That's so nice. And soon I'll be a world famous YouTube celebrity. You guys watch, and you'll have been at the ground level, and you'll watch my ascent. I'll remember you when I'm famous. Yeah. They're so dumb. Jesus was Palestinian Israelite who probably had no problems with Arabs or Muslims. They are so not following the Bible. Yeah, that's and doing everything opposite of what Jesus died for. Exactly. That's exactly the truth, Ruth. Like, you just, like, nailed it. Because, like, these they don't read the book. They just don't read the book. And they certainly don't connect the book to their own life. Right? Yeah, I don't give a blank about Jenna or Daya or Dog or whatever. That type of YouTuber sucks. I do think that there's, like, it's so funny because, like, a guilty pleasure of mine, oh, hey, the Max, how you doing? I haven't seen you in the chat for some time. Good to see you, bud. Just got back home from work. Truthy Ruth. Yeah, that's exactly it, Mox. You felt as though your efforts were futile, or like, because, like, what I'm doing here is not, like, turning a crank, or, like, building something, right? Or, like, planting something, or, you know, getting your hands into it. And it's like we were talking about before, like, when I come from a fairly rural background, and so the only type of work that is respected in that community is the kind of, like, back-breaking, you know, like, get your hands dirty. That's good. Well, that can be good, actually. It gives you a good night of sleep, right? Hopefully. And so, like, when I went to university and started to pursue, like, academic pursuits, there was always sort of this mockery that came with it, you know? And everything I've ever wanted to do carried with it this shame, this culture of shame behind it. That, like, oh, you're not building a building or growing crops or even distributing goods, really. Oh, you're pursuing theater, you're pursuing film, you're pursuing the humanities. And it really comes down to that kind of, like, the mocking of the humanities. And we've ended up with a culture that is essentially culturally dead because we have no respect for the humanities. And the people who have paid attention to the humanities are turning around and saying things back to the human culture and being like, hey, there's shit that we should do. And it's all, like, bearing out in this climate change struggle. But because, oh, we're not turning a winch. Anyway, that's getting a bit personal. That's getting a bit cutting down to the bone of just being like, and I suppose it's a long form way of me saying, stop listening to the haters, right? Stop listening to the haters. They're haters gonna hate, and they're gonna say what they're gonna say. And if somebody is looking at the thing that you want to do and the thing that you're passionate about doing, oh, dude, yeah, I've been saying that on this channel for the last week, dude. Like, we need to slow down. We need to stop. We just need to stop doing stuff. Like, this idea that we can continue this manic pace eternally, and that the Earth is just going to be, like, fine with that. It's not going to be fine with it. Like, we're not fine. Mark Zuckerberg called early Facebook users dumb for sharing data, giving up privacy. Yeah, Mark Zuckerberg is, like, one of the worst people on the planet. Like, yeah. Anime Paul faces July 20th non-confidence vote as Green Party lays off staff. So this is going to be a big moment for the Green Party, I think. A non-confidence vote for Anime Paul, if it were to succeed, probably means that they're going to take the socialist swing, that they're going to move socialist. And it'd be the timing of all of it really could come down to be like, the non-confidence vote could happen, Anime Paul could be ejected, they could hold a new election internally, they could elect a socialist, and then suddenly on the debate stage is, like, this completely unknown person who could be pushing Canada to the left. Yeah, real lizard hours, Zuckerberg. Yeah, dude, the Zucks. And any pictures, I love the stuff that the meme culture surrounding Zuckerberg. Like, I'm sure if I get into the images, like, just look at this guy. There's something unholy about him, right? Like, there's something just, like, somewhat demonic about just the way he looks. as a person. I know you're not supposed to do this. You're not supposed to like judge a book by its cover, but like, what a weird looking guy, right? And like when he went in front of Congress, he just looked like a weirdo. Anyway. The Greens could very well fold and join up and merge with NDP. There are lots of big questions about like what's the point of the Green Party, right? Like the Green Party, like all of their policies have been adopted by the other major parties. They're not really adding much to the conversation these days. Yeah, Star Trek's data. He does have that kind of data look about him. But if the Green Party were to actually become a full-on socialist party and actually be like, we are socialism, like that is what we're doing, and to push the nation on socialism, then I think they still are valid, right? They still have a role, because things have gone the parties have gone so far to the right from what they were historically, right? Like the conservatives are fascists, the liberals are right wing. The NDP, they're not socialist, right? They don't say that they're socialist. Near as I can tell, they're just kind of orange liberal. Like, I bet you anything that they're doing that kind of classic thing where they're running on the left, but then ruling on the right, right? Like, I get a real orange liberal kind of feeling from the NDP, and so we could use a party. We could use a smaller party on the left, actually saying we are socialists, actually saying we are here to push the country further to the left. So we could use a Green Party that's actually socialist, and it could happen if Annamie Paul gets voted out from a non-confidence vote, which is a bit unfortunate because I actually rather like Annamie Paul as a person. I've talked to her, but you know, politics is politics, and that's how it goes. And so if she faces a non-confidence vote, gets ousted, it's extremely likely that the person that wins the next election internally will be a socialist. Yes, aren't the oddest usually genius? Not in a good way. Maybe he's a Borg. Oh. Well, and also, like, he's not a genius. Like, he kind of bought his way in, and we all know this story. He like betrayed everybody and kicked them off the curb, right? Like he's like the worst kind of person alive. Could you briefly explain to us Americans what an orange liberal is? I mean, I'm just using that's my own kind of phrase to use. Like, so we have the Liberal Party, right? And the Liberal Party's colors are red, just like the Conservative Party is blue, right? So blue, red. And then the NDP, the color that they chose was orange, and they chose orange to delineate themselves in the party spectrum. And initially, in the early days of the NDP, they actually called themselves a socialist party. And then as Jack Layton took over the party and started to strike into actually possibly becoming the leader of the nation, he removed the term socialist. And this is in like the late 90s, early 2000s where this happens. And the NDP kind of stops pushing on that socialism button, even though their most successful leaders, Tommy Douglas, for example, one of the most successful politicians maybe in the nation's history. We actually had like a television show hosted on, I believe it was the CBC, and it was The Greatest Canadian, and it literally was like a tournament-style voting, like a la The Voice or America's Next Top or America's Got Talent or any of these things where people could vote in for who they think the greatest Canadian is, right? And it involved lots of like well-known Canadian celebrities. It was really, really well established. Like Bret the Hitman Hart was involved, if you're familiar with him. Don Cherry was involved. Several politicians were involved in this, and it was like a tournament-style pit these people head-to-head, winner loser, move on to the next bracket kind of thing that occurred over like a long period of time. And the winner of this affair was Tommy Douglas, former leader of the NDP. And everybody said, pretty much straightforward, Tommy Douglas is the greatest Canadian because he is the reason we have our healthcare system, right? He was the premier of Saskatchewan, and he created a universal healthcare system for Saskatchewan. And then he ran federally and became the leader of the NDP federally, and was so threatening to the Trudeau Liberals, the Trudeau senior Liberals, that they enacted the healthcare system themselves because they knew if they didn't, they would lose power. Have a good one, Robin. Have a good one. But to just finish up before you go, so I say orange liberal because the current NDP are just kind of acting like liberals. They're not socialists, not really, and I don't necessarily believe everything they say about what their intentions are. And so orange liberal, right? Anyway, the Anti-Poverty Party, the APP. I kind of like that, actually. Like, I mean, we could say the Anti-Capitalist Party, right? If you want to be the Anti-Poverty Party, you're anti-capitalist anyway. So the Anti-Capitalist Party, the ACP. Remember when the Conservative Party and the Reform Party merged and they created the Conservative Reform Alliance? And they actually announced it, and they were like, it's the Conservative Reform Alliance Party. And everybody was just like, this makes sense that they would come out and be like, crap. Yep, here we are, the right wing. Crap. DS9. That's what a great show that is. NDP equals Labor, Liberals, and Social Democrats with a sizable socialist wing that makes up the entire youth of the party. Yeah, I mean, I have big questions about Jagmeet Singh, right? Like, that's really what it's coming down for me, is that Jagmeet Singh seems like it's obvious that he's very passionate on race issues, as somebody, I think, who has directly experienced sort of the negative aspect of not being white in the political system, especially walking around with that turban on. Like, there's lots and lots of footage of people walking up to Jagmeet Singh and being like, hey, I like what you say, but you got to get rid of that turban. Like, oh, yeah, okay. And so when it comes to those issues, you can see his passion, you can see his commitment, you can see his desire. But when it does come to, like, anti-poverty issues and when it comes to class issues, I have lots of concerns. I have lots of concerns about Jagmeet Singh. Are you down with NPP? I don't know what NPP is, bud. National People's Party? That's just a guess. I don't know what that is. NDP are good, but they could be a lot stronger. Jagmeet Singh has been responsively progressive on a number of issues, but he needs to come out with a bang and climb. And responsively progressive is exactly how I would put it. Like, I think he's just saying what his base is saying. Like, I think his base says say this, and he says okay. And I don't see a person who is actually passionate about taking hold of these issues. No poverty party, yeah. Oh, I'm down for that. I'm down for that. Like, we could get rid of poverty. Like, we could do it. And anybody who says that we can't is a grifter or is deluded. Like, we could do it. And not only do it in our own nation, but do it across the whole globe. Like, this is something that can be done. We just don't want to. We'd much rather bomb Middle Eastern countries and destroy places than build anything, right? Like, what inheritance are our children going to get? What are children like? I always think about this, that, like, fundamentally what we're doing is we're creating an inheritance. It's this ongoing creation of an inheritance, and an inheritance for the next generation yet to come, and the people who have not yet been born. And we're constantly creating this inheritance for them. What inheritance are we creating? Like, what they are inheriting is a total disaster. It's a complete and total nightmare. And like, this this period of Western history, or of history generally, it's going to be very difficult for people to walk away from and say anything other than, like, these people lost their fucking minds. Like, on the same kind of level as, like, what's his name? Nero, who was playing the fiddle while Rome burned? Was that his name? Nemo? I forget what his name was. But, like, the kind of insanity that gripped the aristocracy during the fall of the Roman Empire, and, like, the absurd nonsense that they got up to. China lifted billions out of poverty. Yeah, I think we can manage less than 40 million. Yeah, and, like, there's just so much bullshit about it, and it is all, like, ideologically driven at this point. It's like, it's not about, like, we have the practical solutions, like, we know what to do, like, we do, like, and it's going to turn out to be not that difficult, right, in terms of practicality, in terms of the actual practical doing of it. 50 years ago, they would inherit our money and property. Today, they are inheriting our debt, our poverty, and our homelessness. Yeah, that's exactly right, Macht. That's exactly right. And this is why I keep saying, like, I'm just happy to, like, not have any debt, to just live in a small space. Like, at this point, I feel like my contribution to the culture is to just not get involved, right? That, like, the best thing for many of us to do is just not be involved. Just like, okay, like, you keep insisting that we need to keep doing stuff, but it seems like everything we do is just to blow stuff up. So I'm not going to be involved in it. Thank you very much. I'm happy to do, like, a streaming YouTube channel. Be like, hey, maybe we should stop blowing ourselves up. Maybe that's a good idea, but seems like we can't put two and two together on this one. All employees must stop crying before returning to work. Imagine printing this and putting it out. Like, capitalists are like nightmares, man. They're just a nightmare. Like, ugh. Taiwan's KMT will not congratulate CCP on a 100th anniversary. Yeah, that's not that surprising. Especially, like, I've looked at more and more. I've become fascinated by the relationship between Taiwan and China. And for a long period of Taiwanese-Chinese history, Taiwan was considered the ruling class. That they actually were, like, the owners of China. And they were the ones that were dictating policy across China. And now the relationship has flipped. And what's interesting about the relationship between Chinese and Taiwan is that there has never been an explicit statement by the Taiwanese government that China has jurisdiction over Taiwan. Like, that's never actually officially happened, but, like, the assumption is built in because Taiwan considered itself the ruling class of China, and so one assumes that the place from which the ruling class operated would also be part of the place that it operated from. So I think that I'm pretty safe saying that, yeah, China and Taiwan is part of China. I think that's pretty clear. And people who are saying that Taiwan is its own country are, like, you know, Western imperialists who want to put a military base here so that they can bomb, you know, Hong Kong or bomb Weizhou or any of these places. Anyway, yeah, can't imagine bringing a kid into this. I'll have nothing to leave them. Any advice about what they should do with their life will be useless in 20 years. Way less than that. Like, every piece of advice I ever received was wrong. And I'm not mad about it. I don't look at those people and say, like, oh, grumble, grumble, like, how dare you. But, like, the fabric of our communication network even, right? The rise of the internet, these technological disruptions which have come through our society, and changed how things operate and how things work. Like, you couldn't possibly have predicted any of it. And a lot of the advice that we're given are by people who are living in a society or who grew up in a society that was actually structured to take care of its citizenry, and that when I was a teenager, all of that was being dismantled actively, right? And I'm a teenager, I have no fucking idea what's going on, right? And so that by the time I'm actually like in my early 20s and getting into the workforce, all of the manufacturing jobs are gone. The society has completely restructured it. The rise of the gig economy, the rise of the precariat, like the boomers who like literally grew up in like a society where a single wage earner working, a normal job could have a wife and kids and a car and a house and all that kind of stuff, like Married with Children style. Like Al Bundy was a minimum wage worker working as a shoe salesman in a mall, and he had a house, kids, car, and everybody said that was normal. That's how life was. Gone. All of that is gone. And the people who like lived through that and who are the beneficiaries of the system still act as though it's still here, right? And I'm right with you. Like my brother has 2 kids. I've got a friend who has 2 kids, and I look at those kids and I'm like, you fucking sorry bastards. Like you're gonna get completely ramrodded. Like it's not even going like, and we're all just gonna kind of shrug about it. We're all just gonna be like, yeah, what are you gonna do? And they're gonna be furious. No, not Ted Bundy, Al Bundy. Come on, Married with Children, Al Bundy. Yeah, a young person would not be able to work at McDonald's in 20 years. Robots will be flipping burgers and taking orders. Yeah. Well, and the automation of everything. Like, part of the thing that nobody really talks about is, like, our systems have already become very automated, right? That, like, it used to be that it took, like, 80 to 90% of the populace to get food from the field to your face. But now it's like less than 10%. That's an enormous decline. And it's 100% because the system got automated. And so what are you going to do? What are you going to do with this labor force that you've got, right? And the solution used to be, well, put them into factories. Well, we don't have that anymore, do we? And all of that shit's getting automated itself as well, right? So, like, and instead of saying, oh, great, we've automated this stuff, now we can have less labor and have more leisure time. No, everybody's got to be working. I'm glad I got to live at least 20 years of my life somewhat normal before climate change and massive wealth inequality takes control. Oh, yeah. At this stage in the game, it's just like, I'm just trying to do what I can to keep my life kind of calm. That right now I'm still in this like post-pandemic place where I'm sort of floating through on like the savings that I've accrued. But I know I'm going to have to probably go out and get a job, right? Probably a part-time job somewhere. I'm hoping that I can get a job doing something that's actually helpful, right? Like I'd like to work in a place where it's like dealing with poverty, dealing with the fallout of all this kind of stuff. I don't know if I'll be successful finding any of that kind of stuff. But I don't want to go work another retail job. I don't want to go work another like, hey, let's sell some bullshit to somebody. Like, I'm not interested in that. I want to, I'd like to, even being like a receptionist for a doctor's office, right? Or a receptionist for, like, even a lawyer. Like, that would at least be useful. That would at least be something that was productive. But people live through worse times. The difference now is it doesn't feel like there's a future. That's exactly right, Onward. That like World War II, for example, was a catastrophe. It was this apocalyptic event that we were inflicted. And like, we didn't even bear the brunt of that. That was the Europeans that really bore the brunt of it. Well, and the Russians that really, really bore the brunt of it. But like, it's starting to raise kind of interesting questions of like, can we actually live in peace? Is that something we're capable of doing even? Because now the threat of like nuclear war is so real. A good old real estate crash will fix things up. There's not going to be a real estate crash. That's the thing that people are not realizing, Ward. Like, everybody is standing around saying like, oh, this has to crash. No, it doesn't. It doesn't need to crash because the billionaires own all the land. right? So they own all the land, and it doesn't matter if the market crashes. They're not going to sell that land. They want the land. It's about land. And I'm going to just keep saying this over and over again, right? It's not about creating a housing market. It's not about creating some kind of situation where they take it in, build something on it, and then turn around and resell it. It's not about that. It's literally about, I am the billionaire Bill Gates. I own huge parcels of land so that when I die, I can pass that land on to my children. We are kings and they are princes. That is what is happening. This is the rise of neo-feudalism. We are living in a neo-feudal society. There's no such thing as a housing crash with billionaires owning all the land. It doesn't exist. What does exist is independent ownership of land by billionaires who they will pass down to their children. That's what's happening. There's no market crash coming. It's not going to save us, right? There's not going to be a recalibration. The Great Reset, right? Like that's the propaganda that they're using to get us prepared in advance for enormous changes and crashes, so that they can be like, oh sure, this is a difficult period now, but things are resetting, don't worry. And then 10 years after that, we're all going to look around and be like, things didn't get better. It's just yet another neoliberal grift, right? Just how trickle-down economics was a grift, right? The Great Reset is a fucking grift, that they're 100% going to plunge us into feudal peasantry. That's what's happening. And we are just going to be told to deal with it. It's right in front of our face. That the market isn't going to crash for them, right? The market is only going to crash for us. That we are no longer going to be able to use these markets in order to do anything of value. Those markets are going to crash and go away, and what's going to be left are billionaire institutions who own all of this land and own all of this property and aren't going to sell it. They're not interested in that, right? If I sell it, then I can't give it to my children, which is the goal. I think there will be a lot of pandemic poverty from now on. Well, and in the United States, like tomorrow, throughout the United States, there's this enormous. They've lifted the debt. The rent. They were not evicting people because of rent, right? They were saying rent moratorium. That's what it was. But they still were accruing the debt, right? So now you've got and it's going to start happening tomorrow, all throughout the United States. The eviction moratorium has been lifted. These people still don't have jobs. They still don't have money. They got like one $1,400 check in the last 6 months. And these people are going to start getting evicted, right? So you're going to have a mass eviction movement happen all through the summer this year, right? It's going to be an enormous project. You're definitely going to see throughout major cities in the United States a movement against this, where people are going to actively prevent police from evicting people. You're going to hear the heartbreaking stories of like the 98-year-old woman that gets evicted onto the street and then dies there. You're going to hear all this kind of stuff. That there's going to be a massive, and that mass eviction, incidentally, is going to happen here in Canada as well. Like our leaders have created like rent moratoriums, but they're going to lift those. They're going to lift those eventually. The difference, I think, is that Canadian leaders are smart enough to do a trickle out, right? So they'll like lift a moratorium over here and have like 1,000 people get thrown out onto the streets, and then they'll do one over here, so another 1,000 people, right? So it'll be like a steady trickle out. Whereas the United States, they don't give a fuck. They're going to pull the trigger, and like 1 million people are just going to be dumped onto the streets, and that's going to start happening tomorrow. Yeah, exactly what I was saying, Jeff. Hey, how you doing, Jeff? Yeah, I can only imagine the next few decades the Canadian population explodes because of Yank and Latin American immigrants. Well, yeah. I mean, we have so much land. Like, we've got so much land, and we are a country that is in population decline. People are not having children in Canada. because capitalism doesn't let us. So we're in a population decline, and so people generally see immigration as a more or less positive thing. Nobody should own property. We should have access to it. Yeah, because fundamentally, like we're temporary creatures. Like we're just kind of renting, like more than anything. People in the far west are doomed. They can't even leave the systems they're forced to live in because passports cost money they don't have, as well as they can't pay travel expenses. Yeah, isn't that like the right wingers, the Ben Shapiro types will be like, well, you just sell your house and move, and it's like, sell your house to who, Ben? Like, sell your house to who? Who's buying houses in these depressed, poverty-stricken areas? And then also, because moving is free, right? It doesn't cost any money whatsoever to move. It's completely free. And anybody can do that, right? Yeah, the worst part is you won't even hear about it for the most part. I mean, I'm sure that I will. I feel like I'm on a lot of subreddits that are specifically geared for this kind of stuff, so I feel like I will. But yeah, you're right. It's not going to be like mainstream sources. It's not going to be like mainstream media talking about it. And that's the thing, Max. Isn't that the heartbreaking part of it? It's cheaper to house people. Finland recently passed an initiative where they literally just went, oh, there's homeless people, let's put them in houses. Straight up. They were just like, oh, these houses are empty, we've got homeless people, put them in the houses. And they found out it was cheaper, it was the most efficient way of dealing with the situation, and it was the most successful way to rehabilitate the homeless. That homeless people are living in this constant state of crisis and despair, and it's very difficult to reintegrate them into the wider economy. And Finland found out, oh, if you just give them a house. But we just seem to not be able to get our shit together on this. Like, we seem not to be like we've tied the ideology of a death cult into the practical reality of needing to house and shelter people, like to feed and shelter people. We've turned it into this ideological pursuit instead of saying, oh, there are homeless people and there are people starving, and let's put two and two together and solve it, and we're done. Instead of that, there's this sense that they have to earn it. There's this sense that if you are in this state of homelessness or poverty, that you have somehow failed, right? Like these sorts of things. It's blisteringly mind-boggling to me. Yeah, they always have a new grift. You're right about that, man. We'll acclimatize ourselves to people freezing in tents in the same way we did for COVID deaths. Yeah, that's absolutely right. Yeah, the typical month-to-month living, it's ridiculous. Yeah, this whole situation, everything about this is ridiculous. And again, like, the solution is to stop. The solution is to stop participating, is to gum up the works, is to stop enabling these sociopaths, right? And to start protesting. And in big, meaningful ways, start shutting down infrastructure, start organizing strikes, start doing what we can. Because the problem that we're facing now, like most people, like everything we're saying here, most people are on board with, I think. I think, right? Most people are actually on the left. Like, they want people to be sheltered. They want people to be living in houses, right? That most people want that to be happening. It's just that the left has been so purposefully disorganized and purposefully broken apart. So it's difficult to actually get anything done. Which is why I'm glad to see that there's like a big youth movement moving into the NDP. Because like the youth know what to do. Like they understand, they're talking this way. Like, yeah, general strikes at the 401 highway is a good start. Yeah, I think that's the truth. Burning churches is unacceptable way to respond to unmarked indigenous graves, Trudeau. So yeah, this is a thing that's been happening. People have been going and burning down churches, right? I have a mixed feeling on this. I have mixed feelings. That's where I'll land. I won't expound too much deeper into that because I don't necessarily want my channel to get banned. And I feel like if I start talking about how hypothetically and theoretically, if I were to start talking about how burning down churches seems completely acceptable. I can see how some people might report me for such actions. I already think that I'm on tenuous water saying we should be rounding up Nazis, right? Like, I already think that somebody at some point is going to be like, rounding up people is wrong. It's like, no, but unless they're Nazis, like, Nazis have no rights. So what's the issue? But like, I am actually shockingly pro property destruction. Like, in the national conversation that happened throughout the United States in the wake of the George Floyd thing, there was like a universal acceptance that property destruction was bad. And I'm kind of sitting here being like, I would love to get on like Joe Rogan's podcast or something and be the guy who is like saying like, property destruction seems fine, seems completely normal, and like the populace is destroying the system around them. That they are acknowledging that the system no longer functions, it doesn't work, it needs to be destroyed, and so they're destroying it. Seems completely normal. A general strike would wake them up. The most recent government shutdown ended when airline employees went on strike. Yeah, especially because rich people use airlines. Yeah, exactly. And a general strike is the only thing they respect, right? Because they essentially use us for their convenience, right? We are wage slaves. They use us for their convenience. They glorify that they're job creators, but the truth is that once we no longer make the money, they abandon us, right? That's what happens. And if we cease being convenient for them, that's the only way they'll actually pay attention to us. We can write to our politicians and vote and do what we want, but like we need to confront capital. That's really what it comes down to. Killing children is an unjustifiable way for the government to get rid of their problems. Yeah. It's even worse, Max, when you think about how much more money your bosses make week to week just to make sure people work while you struggle and build the foundation of their company. Yeah. That's God's honest truth right there. That, like, the only reason capitalists employ you, like, this is the thing I was thinking about recently because this Axel guy was coming in and talking about capitalism. And I'm, like, sitting here being like, oh, yeah, like, you just need to get back to the fundamentals and the basics of why capitalism is evil at its core. And it's evil at its core because the only reason you have food and shelter is as a side effect of a capitalist exploiting you for your labor. That if they didn't steal your surplus value, right? You do all the work, they do none of the work, they get your surplus value, and if they didn't get your surplus value, well, then you wouldn't get food and shelter, right? And that's the arrangement. And the moment that you are no longer profitable to them, they get rid of you, right? And so this whole veneration of I'm a job creator and aren't I the greatest person alive, like, it falls apart immediately because well, if you weren't able to steal the surplus value of the people you employ, yeah, you wouldn't be a job creator, would you? You would just get rid of them. And if they became homeless and went onto the street, you'd just be like, oh, well. Like, they just need to work harder. Pull themselves up by their bootstraps. They must be an inferior person. We can get rid of them. After losing a 6-year lawsuit against the city and urban court, Toronto Media Arts Centre is being evicted from West Queen West. Yep. Farewell to the arts. Canada has no culture. The artistic culture such and the humanities such as they exist in this society are just going to get ground into the earth because they don't make money for capitalists. I want to live in a world where people wearing swastikas or rainbows or black power shirts can coexist. Ugh. I want to live in a world where LGBTQ people who want equal rights and black people who want to be safe aren't seen as equivalents to Nazis. Yeah, no shit. This is brutal. No. I feel like if you're willingly walking around wearing a swastika, like, that should be enough. We should literally be able to take you and incarcerate you. Like, if you've got a swastika tattoo, we should imprison you. I saw that comment, Ruth. I saw it, and I agree. I don't know why you deleted it. It's a good comment. people do want to work. People want to work. They want to work at what they believe is useful. They want to be useful. They want to work at the things that they enjoy doing and that they see as productive and that they see as beneficial to their society. They want to do this, but yeah, they can't afford to. Yeah, people want to work, they just can't afford to. Yeah. Oh, don't get into this. I hate this line, Barnabas. Like, what if you're Hindu, right? That the swastika was actually like an old Hindu thing. Yeah, too bad. Like, too bad. Like, that's all well and good if you're in India, I suppose. But like, the swastika means something in the West. It's been co-opted, right? Like, there was even a group. What was the name of that group? I actually did a video on this. Epoch Times Wikipedia. So I don't know if you've ever heard of the Epoch Times. Falun Gong, that's what it is. So Falun Gong is a religious organization that actually started in China in the 1990s and gets expelled from China. Can't imagine why. Can't imagine why they get expelled from China, right? And I've talked to people about this, and they're like, they say exactly as you said. They're like, oh no, but that's a symbol of peace in Hinduism and all that. Okay, yeah. They started in the 1990s. They know exactly what they're doing. Like, they know exactly what they're doing. They know that this symbol does not represent peace. They know that it no longer represents that, especially to Westerners, right? Especially to Westerners. Well, and especially to the Chinese. Like, it's, yeah, swastika in Germany is actually Hakenkreuz, or hooked cross. Even I can tell that I butchered that. Hakenkreuz. Hakenkraus? Which is much closer to the hooked Christian cross. Yeah. And, but I don't buy this. I don't buy this bullshit. Like, if you're walking around with a swastika, you know what you're doing. You know who you're attracting. You know what ideology you're espousing. And it's not Hinduism. It's not Buddhism. Right? Like, I don't buy this argument at all. And this Falun Gong organization, they exist here now in the West, and they run a newspaper called the Epoch Times, or the Epoch Times if you prefer, which is essentially an anti-Chinese propaganda rag. The leader of which, by the way, Li Hongzhu, he believes that he has supernatural powers, that he can fly, that he can turn invisible. What's one of my favorite things that he thinks that mixed race relationships are bad, like this kind of eugenics style way of speaking. Ooh, big shocker, eugenics? Can't imagine. So the guy is literally fucking insane, and gets expelled from China because of his insanity, essentially. Yeah. And of course, the Wikipedia article is like, the government of China increasingly viewed Falun Gong as a potential threat due to its size, independence from the state, and spiritual teachings. Yeah, spiritual teachings like eugenics is good. Like, and so they oust them, right? They oust them, and I'm like, anytime I take a look at them, I'm like, yeah, oh yeah, anti-evolution statements, right? Anyway, so yeah, of course they're anti-Chinese. They got expelled from China. Anyway, that was a bit of a divergence, and I only bring it up because I actually did a lot of research. If you ever see Shen Yu, there's like that Chinese woman on the well, here I'll just Shen Yun. This stuff, if you ever see these posters. So I actually was quite enticed by this poster because I love cultural events and I actually love Eastern culture and history and all of this. And I went to this dance performance that they put on, and it was beautiful, by the way. It was absolutely beautiful. The dancers are exquisite. There's this one segment that they did where a group of women came out and they had pots on their heads, right? And they were dancing with these pots on their heads. And I really thought to myself, oh yeah, these pots, they're probably strapped in, right? They're probably like built in. There's some kind of mechanism or something like this. But then they started taking the pots off. And maybe there's like some kind of magnet or something. But like the very fact that they were like keeping these pots on their heads while like literally like taking their foot and putting it above their head, like that kind of stuff. I was like blown away by their performance. But then at the end of the performance, or as the performance went on, the anti-Chinese sentiment became more and more obvious, that they started to literally tell stories about how like China is evil. And then my favorite part was that they had established, like there was this view screen where they put like images and stuff. And my favorite part was that they had established a city skyline and that a tidal wave came and was going to wipe out the city, right? And then in the tidal wave came the face of Karl Marx with the Communist Party symbol on it, the hammer and sickle, on his forehead, his eyes blazing red. Karl Marx in a tidal wave coming to wipe out the city. But then the Shen Yu, like leader of their like little weird religious cult, came and like banished the tidal wave and saved the city from the tidal wave of evil Karl Marx. And I remember watching it and just being like, oh, holy shit, like, this is anti-communist propaganda. This is like McCarthyian level shit. And that really inspired me to do more research on Shen Yun and the, which leads me ultimately to like the Epoch Times and Falun Gong and the recognition that this is a cult. Like the Falun Gong cult is insidious. It's deeply implanted, and its goal is the destruction of China. Like that's what they're up to, and they have couched all of this in the classic kind of Hindu Buddhist spiritual practices that they hide behind, and it's just a religious cult. It's just a way to funnel money into their bullshit. Which is a shame because Shen Yu, as like an artistic piece, like outside of the anti-communist propaganda and the anti-Chinese propaganda, these people are brilliant. They're brilliant. It's a real spectacle, something interesting. And these days, like, something interesting, please. Like, what a struggle to find something interesting. Humanity is bringing out many things I thought were put away permanently when I was a kid. Yeah, unbelievable the Nazis are back, eh? Like, Nazis are back? Are you kidding me? I looked into them as well. It seemed to be a Proud Boys-esque cult. Yeah, I think that that's accurate. Like, if the Proud Boys wore tutus and did, like, heel kicks and shit. And did, like, big twirls and stuff. Yeah. They definitely, and they've done a good job of making their image soft. Like, the Epoch Times stuff is a bit more on the nose. And, like, if you've never seen their ads on YouTube or something like this, they're getting more and more explicit. Like, they're literally getting to be like, they show a guy and the guy is typing into his computer, China is an evil dictatorship. And then, like, and then they get to a website and they're like, oh, banned, or and the guy's like, why is this banned? Why? I don't understand. And the Epoch Times comes, has this happened to you? And you're like, Jesus Christ. Like, they're literally advertising to neo-Nazis and fascists. Like, they're literally advertising to the absolute basement of our society. Republicans, blacks should protest peacefully. Blacks, how about we peacefully protest the national anthem? No, not like that. Also Republicans, January 6th, 2021 was peaceful. Yeah, dude. It's like, we just live in this age of delusion. Yeah, dropping student debt, can't be done. Dropping bombs in Syria, Yeah, Jack. Come on, man. Come on, man. Dropping student debt, that's a bunch of malarkey. Dropping bombs on Syria, yeah, Jack, that's the way to go. Yeah, man. Come on, man. While they were worried about socialism. While you were so worried socialism would take your freedoms, capitalism stole your pension, took your savings, sent your jobs overseas, robbed you of health care, dismantled the educational system, put you in debt, leaving only your racism, xenophobia, hate, and guns. Womp 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 womp. Yeah, dude.
I came over here with absolutely nothing. I had $20 in the pocket and some sweaty clothes in the gym bag. But let me tell you, I had this one little apartment, and on Thanksgiving, the bodybuilders from Gorge Gym came to my apartment, and they brought me pillows, dishes, silverware, all of the things they didn't have. I always tell people that you can call me anything that you want, but don't ever, ever call me a self-made man. And it gives the wrong impression that we can do it alone. None of us can. The whole concept of the self-made man or woman is a myth. I would have never made it in my life without the help. So this is why I don't believe in a self-made man. Why I want you to understand that is because as soon as you understand that you are here because of a lot of help, then you also understand that now is time to help others.
What a, like, Arnold Schwarzenegger is like, he is like a superhero. He's like a treasure that we have been gifted as a people. Like to see the journey that he went through, his life's arc, and to see now that he's in his older age and he's turning around and he is like a true progressive, a genuine person who seems really connected and entrenched to reality, and humble. It takes a great deal of humility to say the things that he just said. And you compare him to somebody like Kevin Sorbo, right? Kevin Sorbo, if you guys don't know, like Hercules, we all remember this guy. But he's come out as like a PragerU kind of far-right conservative type, being like, I'm a self-made man, right? And literally in one of the PragerU videos that he did, he tells the story of how he got started, and he and this is being said without any awareness whatsoever. He's literally saying like, yeah, me and my family, we went overseas to Europe. So already, like, you're born into a family that has the money to get you to Europe in the first place. And I was just like walking around the streets of Paris, and then somebody stopped me while I was walking around the streets of Paris and said, oh wow, you should be a model. Here's my card. And so I went to the agency and did some shots, and then from there everything exploded. It's like, so literally your rich family took you to Europe, and somebody gave you a modeling job on the streets, and then you became like a celebrity and like all this kind of stuff, and you genuinely think that you did it all yourself. Yikes. Like, that's the level of delusional arrogance that we're talking about. Like, and it's so refreshing. That's why I was so concerned when I saw Arnold Schwarzenegger. I was like, oh no, I like Arnold Schwarzenegger. Don't make me hate Arnold Schwarzenegger. But to see him standing in front of people and saying,
over here with
like,
absolutely nothing. At $20
and like, here's a guy that you would think would be like, no, I did this myself. I'm a self-made man, right? Like, look, like if anybody is working their ass off, right? And it's obvious that they're working their ass off. It's this guy. Like, look at it. Like, it's in his body. You can see. Here's a man who worked. Here's a man who, like, put his nose to the grindstone, worked his ass off, and he's standing in front of people being like, but I was only able to do that because of the work and the effort around me. And to expand this concept, we are only able to move forward with the inheritance that we receive. Like, we didn't build the road system, right? We didn't build the power system. We didn't build any of this. We've inherited this. And the idea that, no, I did it all myself and I earned it, like, you have to be delusional and highly arrogant to hold on to this position. Kindergarten Cop is underrated. Exactly. Kindergarten Cop, man. What a great film. I wonder what the Rotten Tomatoes is on Kindergarten Cops. Rotten Tomatoes, Kindergarten Cop. Come on. You should take bets. Yeah, that's about right. That's kind of what I thought. About 50%, you know. But I do gotta say, like, if you're down for it, like if you're going into it with like eyes wide open, right? I think you'd have a really good time with Kindergarten Cop. Al-Assad and Ahmadinejad best heed this morning's news on Gaddafi. Their people should decide what to do, what they should be next. Yeah. Like, this is the shit that Donald Rumsfeld was saying. Like, literally using the execution of Gaddafi as a threat. Openly, in public. Like, these guys are neo-Nazis. Like, they're Nazis. Like, they're on that same sort of scale. Like, they were destroying regimes and destroying people. Not regimes. Like, Gaddafi was a huge boon for Libya. You want to go get it, buddy? You want to go get it? My pug is over here, and he's like bringing me toys. Go get it! Good boy, buddy. Good boy. U.S. arms sales include discounts for dictators. Oh, that's great. Good to know. The All Lives Matter party upset to learn that all votes matter. Liza Minnelli has outlived Donald Rumsfeld, who served as defense secretary under 2 presidents. Rumsfeld was in charge of the invasion of Iraq and inexplicitly said that the removal of Saddam Hussein had created a more stable and secure world. There's a Twitter feed called Liza Minnelli Outlives. Man, I could really use some good news these days, man. So knowing that this Twitter feed exists, that's good news, isn't it? That's good news. It's good news to know that Liza Minnelli outlives is a thing. Yeah, apparently, I've been seeing this more and more from Jen Zedong. CNN and CNBC are actually starting to report on China. Not necessarily positively, but they're reporting on China accurately, I think would be the way to say it. Like, that instead of couching everything they're saying in like this suspicion and McCarthy kind of smearing, they're literally just being like, no, here's China, here's the Communist Party, here's what they did. And people are looking at that and being like, oh, they're commies. The CNBC, they're commies because they're reporting accurately on a thing that's happening. Cheney is going to live forever. Yeah, well, as long as he keeps getting children's blood injected into him, right? He is an eternal vampire, right? We all know this is true. Cheney has only aged in... Cheney has only aged in appearance on purpose, right? So as to maintain the illusion. And then when Cheney dies, it will only be so that he can take on a new form somewhere else and continue his reign of terror here in the world. That Dick Cheney will always be with us. When I say fuck both the Republicans and the Democrats, what they think, all of this graph shit, what I really mean. Yeah, a bit of that. Yeah, Cheney is really Nosferatu. Yeah, they're using the C word, exactly. Well, and they're talking about communism without demonizing it, so they must be commies. We can't trust them. And I do think that there is at least an admission in the propaganda that, like, the media is starting to realize, like, oh, we can't just lie to people. Like, we can't just do that, right? Like, we actually do have to, like, be reporters. Oh, did we admit it? US, EU, Canada, a shameless admission of punishing Venezuela. We actually admitted it? The U.S. State Department posted a media note last June 25th, released by Secretary of State, the EU High Representative. Okay. The message comes 2/3 of the way down the note. We welcome substantive, credible advancement to restore core democratic processes and institutions in Venezuela, and are willing to review sanctions policies based on meaningful progress in a comprehensive negotiation. Yeah. Like, the look at Venezuela grift ended with the UN release of a document where they sent a delegation to Venezuela and basically said, yeah, the thing that's killing Venezuela are the UN sanctions. That Venezuela doesn't have access to the market, and so they can't actually sell their oil. And of course, if they can't actually sell their resources, right? And like they're not really able to sell it to Brazil, because Brazil is working with the United States. So like, if they're not able to actually sell their resources, yeah, of course they're struggling. Like, and so whenever anybody tries to do the like look at Venezuela, or that Venezuela is like a failed socialist system, I'm like, no system. It doesn't matter what your system is if you're at war, right? Like if you're at war and the United States is the one that's like pressing down on your neck, it wouldn't matter if you were communist, socialist, capitalist, wouldn't matter what your system was. Like that kind of military force is going to destroy you. And so the look, like now when people say look at Venezuela, they're essentially saying like how I'm revealing how illiterate I am without, you know, telling you I'm illiterate. How to say you're illiterate without saying you're illiterate. New York City's mayor just told us to turn off our air conditioners. The brands of Times Square are still blazing and consuming. Yeah, that's a really good point. I was thinking about that last night. Like, if we actually cared about the climate crisis, there's lots that we could do. There's, like, lights on all the time. Like, at Dundas Square, there's these big fucking billboards that are just blazing ads. Like, shut all this shit down. Shut all that down. What the hell? Like, you're telling me we need all of these lights all of the time, like, up and crazy like this all of the time? It's insane. Venezuela funds public programs with the resources it makes from oil. Yeah. When the price of oil collapses due to UN sanctions, so does its funding for these things. A stable capitalist market is not socialism. Yeah, that's more or less what's going on. And like, not to mention like the stolen resources, right? The EU has stolen like $1 billion worth of gold from Venezuela, right? Like the idea that what's happening in Venezuela is happening in this vacuum of socialism and that it's socialism that's failed. It's childish. It's childish. And it shouldn't be tolerated. If the grid in New York goes down, wow, look up what happened in the 1997 blackout. Okay, bud. 1977, New York. It popped up and then I did a thing. Okay. It was an electricity blackout that affected most of New York City. The only unaffected neighborhoods in the city were southern Queens. Unlike other blackouts, this blackout was confined. Okay. Lightning damage, power reductions. I'm sure what we're talking about is crime. The blackout occurred when the city was facing a severe financial crisis. Isn't it weird how anytime I look at any historical moment in American history, this line, the city was facing a severe financial crisis, always seems to be there. It's almost as though capitalism is constantly creating severe financial crises. And its residents were terrified by the Son of Sam murders. The nation as a whole, suffering from protracted economic downturn, because capitalism. Looting and vandalism were widespread. Crown Heights, 75 stores on a 5-block stretch were looted and damaged. Yeah. man. Yeah, that's intense, man. And it's insane how like it only takes like a small scale event, eh? Like you think about the looting and the vandalism, and you're like, oh, that happened because of a power outage. Well, the George Floyd murder, right? One man was murdered, and it sparked this like entire riot that like hit most of the major cities. It was like really, really quite intense. It's almost as though capitalists and the people who are inflicted by the capitalist system are ready to spark up at a moment's notice, right? They're just looking for any excuse to continue fighting this long, protracted class war that the society is built in. Have you thought of making a TikTok, John? There's some socialists on there I could see you collaborating with in the future. TikTok, like the 1 minute long videos, I've thought about it. I don't really know how successful I would be. I know that you can stream onto TikTok, and I'm trying to get it worked out. I'm trying to use a program that allows for like multi-streaming, but it's not really working. I'm really struggling with it. So, yeah, I don't know. I think I'm happy with what I'm doing now, and I don't know. TikTok, I don't know. Hundreds of black people were murdered. It just happened that one man sparked the protests. Yeah, that's true. Well, and there does come a moment where people are just like, enough is enough, right? Like, enough is enough. And the George Floyd case was so aggressively, like, all of the other cases were kind of behind the scenes, like we were just hearing about them, right? Whereas this time it's like literally a dude in a public space being filmed, like, and it's very aggressive and it's very obvious what's happened. The 1977 blackout happened for the same reason, a hot July night. Interesting. Yeah, what would happen if suddenly there was a big power outage in New York now? Crazy times. Crazy times. I don't know though, like I could create like little minute long TikTok videos. Because I have the account. I have made a couple of videos because I was experimenting with it back in the day, like literally last year. But you know me, like I'm so like verbose. I kind of wind in the way I talk. So making like a minute-long TikTok video, I'm a bit like, can I do that? Is that something I could do? But I guess I could just make like a minute-long video on the theme of what I'm doing that day, right? And just make a daily video on TikTok. And then I suppose they let you do like descriptions and stuff like that. So I could just put my YouTube channel and my website on the description. Yeah, worth thinking about. Something to look into. Just do more, just create more, get more content out, do more. Well, and TikTok is kind of where lots of people are, right? There's lots of people on TikTok. Anyway. These are photos of countries where socialism was tried. Just kidding, this is the USA. Yeah. These are photos of successful capitalist countries. Just kidding, this is the USSR. Yeah. Yeah, like, that's the funny thing, man. Anytime people say, like, oh, communism fails or any of this kind of stuff, but I'm like, anytime I look at photos or, like, listen to people who talk about living through the communist period, I'm like, this seems fine. Like, this seems normal, especially compared to the shit show that we've got going on here, right? Oh, go get it, buddy. You guys, this is what I have to do for my dog every so often. It's a game that he loves to play. I have to go get it. And he always runs up and he tries to boot me with his nose. Yeah. Yeah, we could have like another situation where like the Texas power grid goes down, where the New York power grid goes down. That'd be crazy, man. USA. USA. So let me get this straight. JP Morgan Chase made record profits during the pandemic because of overdraft fees, and they need to borrow more money because their budget is unstable. Can anyone think of a better reason not to do business with a bank like that? They make money from people suffering, and then a bank collapse will hurt people, i.e. the poor, once again. The whole banking thing is totally fucked. Yeah, it is. It's completely fucked. I can find it on YouTube, bud? Box. Poverty Brazil. This it right here, bud?
Don't have to go all by yourself.
3, 2, 1.
If you go to a Google map of Rio de Janeiro and put it into 3D mode, you can see what the city looks like as it was designed by urban planners. But you'll notice parts of the city that don't look like the rest. See the difference? The people who live in these parts of the city with the clean lines and the well thought out design are called people of the asphalt. The people who live in these parts of the city are called people of the hill. Even though the people of the asphalt...
You know what, Barnabas, let's save it for tomorrow, okay, bud? Because we're almost at the end of the stream here, so I'm probably not going to be able to show the video in the first place. Capitalism caused climate change. It must also be the solution. Yeah. Smashing my head into the wall caused this headache. Therefore, it must also be the solution. Yeah. Yeah, the bank says I can't afford a $950 mortgage, so I pay $1,400 a month in rent instead. Oh, yeah, put it in the chat, bud. Put it in the chat, Robin. Yeah, memories, Rumsfeld. It would be a short war. Rumsfeld speaks of evidence linking Iraq and Al-Qaeda. Rumsfeld on looting in Iraq. Stuff happens. Senate reports ties Rumsfeld to Abu Ghraib abuse. Absolutely, bud. Absolutely. Over the past 15 years, Chinese officials saved an estimated 200,000 lives by reducing the air pollution from coal-fired power plants. But there's a problem. The drop in pollutants is helping warm the planet? What? How does that work? Like, for real, how does that work? No, that doesn't make any sense. Like, if you reduce the air pollution from coal-fired power plants, I would have to see that article to see what their stupid claim is. Oh yeah, empty houses reclaimed. Jeff sharing something. Very good. Very good. Exactly, because China good, China bad. Yeah, you can't just show something good that China has done, right? You need to like say like, look, it's a good thing China did, but it's got consequences, right? Donald Rumsfeld to Obama on Syria. Oust Assad or stay on the golf course. What a fucking psycho this guy was. Yuck. I hope you guys are doing really well out there. Yeah, let's watch some celebrations. So this is coming from CNN,
This is how the
actually.
Communist Party parties. President Xi Jinping has
I'm
been
glad you were
on
here,
hand
Nick.
for fireworks and other
It's always
massive
nice.
displays leading up to the official anniversary.
A good moment to put in before everybody shuts me down. Please like, share, subscribe, tell the world about me, put me on your Twitter feed or whatever, and please do consider donating just $1, right? Just $1 to the Patreon. If you're already donating $1, maybe up it to $2, right? We got to be supporting leftist voices, man. There are literally neo-Nazis. Like, you see this little 4 I got going on here in this YouTube channel? all of this, I'm going to click this, and it's going to be a bunch of fucking neo-Nazis coming at me. So please consider throwing a buck my way. All right, guys. You're all doing really well out there. Thank you for participating. Thanks for being here. Yeah, and you keep on rolling too, Ward. All right, guys. Good luck. We're going to need it.